Welcome to Empirical Pea Pod. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. If you could, please subscribe, follow, share, like, comment, whatever the hell happens when we do these things. I'm your host, Tim Day. Let's get to the show. All right, this is an uncomfortably big fan also.
You want me to turn it down?
No.
Oh.
I like the air. Did you install that yourself, or did it have you built in?
No, I did it.
All right. So we're here with Guy Tiberio at his shop/house. So you have literally a car shop in your garage.
Yeah.
A 3-car garage.
Yep.
And your third car here, like there's literally a car hoist that does up to 9,000 pounds.
Yep.
When you built the house, did you have this in mind? Or did you build this like afterwards? You're like, oh, I'll just put this stuff in here.
I kind of built the house around the garage. So
Yeah.
the house that we had before, I couldn't do what I do because
Right.
it was a 2-car garage and like a cookie cutter subdivision.
Yeah.
So when we decided to move, we were going to have a house built, and like the garage was my main priority. So it's actually a 4-car garage. Like it's 2 deep this way.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But square footage wise, it's about 6 cars.
Also, you're supposed to say it's actually a 4-car.
Yeah. So, but like if we ever go to sell the house, I'll have to sell it as a 4-car garage. But
Yeah.
I've had 5 cars in here before.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you literally keep one in the air? You would never put one under.
Sure do. So it was in a storm. Like they were predicting hail, and I had people's expensive cars here. I'm like, can't leave that out. Like that one's sitting out on the street right now.
Yeah. What
Can't
is
leave
sitting
that
out on the street right now?
It's a 1971 Buick Skylark.
Okay. What are you doing with that?
Just doing some updating.
Yeah.
You know, back then the systems on the safety systems, specifically like brakes and stuff, weren't all that great to stop a tank like that. So converting it to like disc brakes and making it a little bit more modern.
As you know, I don't know shit about cars. What does something like that have in it besides disc brakes?
Drum brakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the rear of my car is
Correct.
brakes.
So imagine having those in the front, which does about 70 to 80% of your braking, and then having a car that's 5,000 pounds.
Wow. Yeah.
Stopping
Mine's
is not
mostly made of plastic.
That's right.
It's like driving a tampon. So yeah, that's what we were talking about too before we got on too. Is like you literally customize these things too.
Yeah.
And fabricate whatever you need right here in this garage.
Yeah. If there's a part that's not made, like that I can't get, I have to make it. Because when people have a dream, and they come to me and say, "This is what I want my car to do, or what I want it to look like, or what I want," my goal is to make sure when I hand it back to them that they got more than they wanted.
Right.
So
that's sitting out basically in the driveway right now. There's a car lifted right now. Are you just doing an oil change?
This car, I'm doing an oil change and a brake job. This is a family friend who.
Yeah, just.
So I do stuff like regular repair
stuff.
too. You know, because I obviously doing it out of my house. You know, for people I know, I could save them a couple bucks. I make a couple bucks.
For sure.
You know, the job's getting done right, so everyone wins in the end. And so I've become a very popular guy.
That's how I always like. I feel like it's the same way I feel about like my tattoo artist friends too.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I feel like a dick when I only hit them up when I need something. Like, I mean, I love you genuinely, but oh hey, my car's acting up.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh cool, good to talk to you.
You know, I don't mind it because sometimes, I mean, you know how life gets. Everyone's busy. Like,
absolutely.
Sometimes that's just the catalyst to, hey, we haven't talked in a while.
That's true.
It sucks that your car's broken, but bring it over, I'll fix it, and then we'll talk a little bit or hang out while I'm fixing it or whatever. So I don't mind it. You know, everyone always feels guilty about it, especially Dave. He's like, oh, I hate that I'm only calling you because my car's broken. I'm like, dude, you got kids, I got kids, everyone's busy. Like, if that's the glue that makes it happen, I'm in.
He makes me laugh too because he's the hardest to pin down.
Oh yeah.
Now, aside from those, so those 2 things are ongoing right now, and then there's a pile right here off to my left of, what did you say? It was like $20,000 worth of parts?
As of right now, what's sitting here is about $20,000, but there's probably another 10 or 15 that are on the way.
Okay.
So obviously, you know, everyone's excuse, supply chain issues.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting on a lot of stuff. That's why the car's not here, because I tell people, if we're doing a big project, I don't want the car here till I have all the parts, at least all the parts that I know of.
And you had said this is like a 3-month project.
Yeah.
Is that the build when everything's here, or is that like getting everything and doing all the work?
The 3 months is like and that's my estimate. But
Sure,
the
sure.
day that the car shows up here,
Okay.
till the day they come to pick it.
Yeah, so
that's
it's like, let me get
usually-
all the stuff first.
Yeah.
And because that would suck to have that car sit here for upwards of all year.
Yeah, well, and then if the car's here and I don't have parts to work on it, then I can't, bring in other people's cars to do
Right.
the brake job
Yeah.
or the little stuff. So I try not to load it up too much because I don't want to be pushing cars around here to get other cars in. So
Yeah.
but like this project started in July.
Oh,
Started
wow.
like putting stuff together.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes me time to find out what parts are available and what I can do, to make something work. So a lot of these are me just buying a bunch of random parts and saying,
Right.
now I got to figure out how to customize these things and make them work. So
Well, you had said actually too before, when we were talking before. Originally, you had estimated this at like a $72,000 job. It's a what is it, 1984 Camaro?
Yep.
So it's a lot of custom work and like basically a full custom job. It looks like.
yeah.
Kind of like really gutting it down and making it awesome.
The only thing that will be original on it is the body panels.
Yeah.
Everything else is changing, and the
Okay.
seats. He wants to keep the seats.
That's
but
cool.
everything
Would
electric
you
will be changed.
reupholster them or just are they in pretty good condition?
They're in really good condition. So the car's really low miles.
Yeah.
It was his grandma's car. She bought it new and left it to him when she passed. So
Right.
it's the sentimental value. He wants to keep some things so when he sits in it, it still feels familiar.
Yeah.
But everything mechanical, everything electrical is coming out. I mean, usually when I do that, I strip the car down to a bare shell, and then I call a scrap guy, and he backs up a trailer to the garage, and I just throw the whole car in the scrap, and then I start building. So.
But so, in what I find fascinating is that obviously that's a little rich. So you managed to cut that down almost in half, like around 40. And so because you had just did an estimate, you didn't really do any of the ins and outs of like mapping it out. Because he has to approve it first, I presume.
Yep.
So once you cut that down, so then like I presume like you're taking away. All right, we'll have to do a smaller motor.
Yep.
We'll change a couple of the ideas and kind of tweak them.
Yeah.
So when's the part where you start like now that you have a decent pile of stuff, and you start thinking, all right, because like when I look at this, I'm like, ugh. Like I know what a motor is.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does or how. I don't make cargo.
Well, sometimes I tell people it's like you don't want to see the sausage being made. So, like you might like eating hot dogs, but you don't want to go in the factory where they make them.
Right, yeah.
You don't want to see, or you don't want to watch a doctor do an operation on you. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to see your liver sitting on a table.
Right.
But you like the end result.
It's got to be like a puzzle piece for you, because you already know what part needs to go where and how. Not how you're going to get it there, but that it needs to get somewhere.
Correct.
So that's when you kind of start making a list. Do you literally write it out? Or do you just mentally start thinking, all right, I got to fabricate this. I'm going to need this. I probably won't be able to find this.
So some of it, I start in a spreadsheet. Like I put together the main parts.
Yeah.
And then after I have the main parts, then I kind of figure out what I need to support that.
Right. Like main parts would be like common sense stuff. Like, I'm going to need a gas tank. I'm going to need a motor. Going to need
Transmission, like
right,
the big stuff. Yeah.
The big things.
And then you build whatever little stuff you can find around it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm lucky and someone makes a part for that, or
Yeah.
I say, oh, well, I could take a part off of this car and I could do this to it to make it work. And then there's sometimes where I just have to put everything I have in, and then I have to bridge that gap. And that's where the fabrication comes in, or
so like for
making
this
parts.
particular project, the gas tank,
Someone made that.
somebody made this gas tank,
Uh-huh.
so that's already custom.
Yep.
And then you have to figure out how to make it get to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, so I have to build a whole pump assembly to make the fuel come out, and then all the lines, and it's also part, like I could do it fairly simply,
Yeah.
but it'll look like shit.
Right.
All these people take these cars to car shows and
Sure,
stuff,
yeah.
and in the end of the day, when someone opens the hood and looks in it, they're either going to go, oh, or they're going to go, oh.
Right.
And then they're going to say, who built this?
Yeah, I was going to say,
And
it's
then
got
my
to come
name's
back on you now.
Yes.
And you don't want to look like an asshole.
Exactly. So like every car that I do not only has to function perfectly, but it has to look incredible.
Presentable, yeah, it's
And
gotta look
that's
awesome.
that's part of why it takes me so long. But also that's why a lot of people come to me. This guy came to me because he's buddies with another guy who I built a car for.
Yeah.
And he saw the car at a car show and he's like, holy shit, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who built this car? And then he called me up. So all my stuff's word of mouth. It's just people that I know, and they see something I did and they like it, so they come to me. I'm also not going to kid myself. I'm doing this out of my garage, so I charge like half of what a shop would charge to do
Sure.
this.
Yeah.
So I'd love to say people come to me because I'm the greatest, but they also come to me because I'm half the price.
Well, you're the greatest for the price.
That's right. So
Yeah. But you're also meticulous, like, because you
Yeah.
enjoy it. Obviously, like anything, there's frustrations. And cars have, like we were saying, there's so many different variables.
Mm-hmm.
Like one tire bolt could take all day because it's just being a bitch,
Yep.
which is insane. But what I wanted to point out, because that's 3 projects right now.
And another one showing up in about 2 hours.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Just another maintenance?
It's just
thing?
regular maintenance. It needs like a tune-up and
Okay.
all that kind of stuff.
So even that, then that's 2 ongoing projects and 2 maintenance projects on a Sunday. You also work full-time at Waubonsie at the college.
Yep.
Teaching
Automotive.
automotives. You also have 2 kids and a wife.
Yep.
So you have to run the family. And during the summer only, right? You work.
Yeah.
Are you still up at the place?
Yep. Yeah, I work at a speed shop in the summer, basically doing the same thing I do here.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
in a professional setting.
Yeah.
I go there in the summer. I used to go over like any school breaks, like Christmas break, all
Right.
that stuff. But I got to the point where I had so much work here
Yeah.
to keep up on. Like at any given time, I have could have a 6-8 week waiting list for small stuff like this.
Right.
You know, like if this guy's brakes were grind, so I can't say, oh, here, wait 8 weeks.
Right, yeah.
So I squeeze it in. That's why I'm doing it on a Sunday
Yeah.
when I'd rather be, doing something with my kids. But
I was like, do you ever take a day off?
I try to.
Yeah.
And I've become more mindful of that as my kids have gotten older.
Sure, yeah.
And they're in activities. Like, I'm sure they love all the things that they can do and get because of the money I make from doing this.
Right.
But in the end, they just want to see me and spend time with me.
Yeah. That's what they're going to remember. The stuff goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to be more mindful of setting aside time to, go to their swim meets and their softball games.
Yeah.
Or, something me and my daughters have been doing recently is have like a daddy-daughter date night. Like,
Nice.
I'll take one of them. We kind of split up so we get some time alone.
Yeah.
We'll like go do something fun, go to a movie, go miniature golfing, or do something they want to do. I let them pick like a restaurant to go to, and it's like our time to spend together.
Right.
Because with the craziness of life and activities, it's
Yeah.
hard to find that time. I mean,
That's true.
just like me and you, I would love to spend more time hanging with you, jamming with you,
Oh,
but
yeah.
finding time that lines up with my schedule and your schedule
Yeah.
and Dave's schedule, it's almost impossible.
That's
You
true.
know?
It's funny because, like, I mean, I have a ton of downtime. It's just a matter of, like, you live in DeKalb. I live in DeKalb, work in Batavia. We're in Yorkville. That's where all of our equipment is. And it's like, it's this absurd triangle.
Yeah.
That, like, you do your stuff with your kids mostly on the weekends. Mm-hmm. That's when, like, I would be out here and around.
Yeah.
Dave's with his kids as well. So it's like, then during the week, we all work till we're exhausted. Like,
Yep.
it's. I do miss making music though, and I think we'll get there again. I think at some point.
Yeah.
In the near future. I can't believe it's almost. I feel like it's been like a year.
It's been just about a year. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
which
was
is-
the end of last summer was the last time we kind of were all together.
Yeah.
And then me and Dave got together like once or twice on a night that you couldn't make it, and then we're like, hey, let's do it next week. Let's get Tim. And here we are almost a year later. So. But
Yeah.
like, we all get it. Like we're all in the same position,
Sure.
and whenever that day comes, we'll hop down there, and it'll be like we jammed last week.
Yeah. Once you remind me of all my bass lines. So I also want to take it back. So let's go back to high school. Because you moved to Oswego in high school.
I moved to Oswego in the start of 8th grade.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because you're a year older than I am.
I'm a year older than you. Yes.
That's right. So did you go to Trauber then?
So I didn't. So
Okay.
the south side of Fox Chase, where we grew up,
Yeah.
just that little block went to Thompson.
Really?
Yes. So
That's funny because I lived literally on the other side of Fox Chase
Yes.
and went to Trauber,
everyone that I knew who
which
lived in
Trauber
Fox
is
Chase-
way closer.
Yep. I'd be on like a 40-minute bus ride by myself to Thompson. Like they came and picked me up first, so everyone else didn't.
I was
have
saying
to send
because
the
you
bus
were there
that
when it
long.
was literally one row of houses.
We were the second or third house in the neighborhood.
in that whole
In that
subdivision.
side, yeah. So
That's
yeah, so I
insane.
went to Thompson, which was also difficult because obviously I didn't drive at the time.
Yeah.
The friends I made were at Thompson.
Right.
So
They're on the other side of town.
yeah, exactly. So I actually ended up becoming friends or meeting a girl named Laura who lived there.
Yeah.
And she's kind of how I got introduced to you and Zach and
Man,
Luke and all those people.
Yeah, there's a name I haven't heard like basically since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yep.
Because she lived on that same street.
Yep. Yeah, so she was kind of like my bridge
Yeah.
to all you guys. And then, once we kind of started hanging out, and then I was kind of a little bit in that group, and then I started meeting some other people, once I started high school that lived in the area. So then I was kind of like part of a couple different little groups.
There's a couple of us that kind of floated like around with a various, like we kind of fit in with everybody.
Yeah.
Like we were just whatever. We didn't fit into one thing. When did you start playing guitar?
So I started playing guitar, well, officially or or when I actually got a real guitar and started taking it seriously.
I would say, when's the first time you picked? Because I first picked it up probably around like 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
But I don't think I got serious until I started playing with Jay.
Yeah.
So it's like, which is a huge gap. But so when would you say you first picked it up versus when you got serious?
So I first picked it up because it always just seemed like something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I told my parents, and just like any parent and kid, yeah, right, I'm going to buy that for you and sit in the corner.
Yeah.
So like one day my dad was coming home from work and saw an old acoustic guitar in the garbage. Someone was throwing it out. So he grabbed it. It had 2 strings on it.
Nice.
So, hey, if the President of the United States could do it, why can't I? So I started playing around with it. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know how to tune it.
Yeah.
But like I just like heard songs that I liked, and I just tried to figure them out on the 2 strings. And I did that probably for about 2 years. That was probably like
2 years you never restrung it.
Nope.
Or tuned it.
Nope. I was afraid to touch the tuners because I didn't know when the strings would break, so I just left it.
And it's people don't realize it's actually dangerous when they break.
Oh yeah.
Because I've had them go through my hand.
Yeah, me too.
Like it's awful.
Yeah, it's not a fun experience.
No.
But I like played around with that, and I think like my parents saw that like.
It's like 2 years is a long time.
Yeah.
To mess with a piece of garbage until where they finally like, oh, maybe we should.
Well, I think they finally like, man, he's been playing with this thing we picked out of the garbage for 2 years. Maybe he's serious.
Yeah.
So I think it was like the Christmas of 8th grade, like right after I moved to Oswego.
Yeah.
They bought me like it was a cheap guitar.
Sure.
I still have it today. I've rebuilt it and actually made it nice.
Yeah.
But like as soon as I got that, like I was hooked. So I like bought a couple books, attempted to learn to read music and do the real thing.
It's so hard.
The only class I ever failed in high school was music theory.
Really?
He dropped me at the semester and
That's
told
so
me that
funny.
I would never make music. So
It's funny because I watch some kids in band at the junior high, and every time I sit there, I'm like, I'm not a musician. I don't understand what's happening. None of this makes sense. It's insane. It's funny though to think about what we've done, knowing how dumb we are.
yeah. Well, and I think maybe that was part of my drive. And it was like actually learning music and doing it the right way just never made any sense to me. Like I couldn't wrap my head around it. And you don't have to have that skill or knowledge to be good at it. It helps.
Right.
And maybe I am
I think
doing
if we were
things.
writers, we would benefit from that skill more. But we're not writers.
We're jammers.
Exactly.
We jam till it feels right. Like we
Yeah.
have the ear, and that's ultimately
Yeah.
what matters. Like whether the scale's right or not, it doesn't matter if it's not
Right.
pleasing to the ear.
Yeah, well, that's like when I read Victor Wooten's book, he always said too, like, just play. No matter where you're playing, you're within a half step of being in tune. Like,
Yep.
Just go.
Yep, well, that seems to work out well for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I just always like I liked it. I liked the idea of it, and then I really enjoyed the challenge of like not knowing what I was doing, but able to figure something out. Like I'd sit down and listen to a song. And like when I listen to music, like in my head, I hear it all separated. Like I don't hear the whole song all together unless I'm focusing on that. But I'll hear it, and I'll hear the drum track separately from the bass track and the guitar track. And I think that helped me figure out how to play, or at least what I think is playing.
Right. Do you still listen to me to that? Because I know, like, usually for me, I listen to stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
And the first time I try to take it all in as one piece, and then I'll be like, all right, I want to hear what the drums are doing, I want to hear what the bass is doing, I want to hear the guitar, and then I want to focus. Usually I'll do the lyrics first.
Yeah.
Just depending on what it is, if it's like depending on what band I'm listening to, some of them are lyric centric.
Yeah.
As opposed to some, I'm like, these lyrics are gonna be stupid. Like when I listen to Red Chili Peppers, I love them, but I know the lyrics are gonna be stupid.
I'm the same way. I almost don't listen to them because of the lyrics. Like I wish they would become an instrumental band because everyone in that band is so talented.
Yeah.
And even Anthony Kiedis' voice is good.
Yeah.
But his writing is
Right.
atrocious. Like I can't
Yeah.
stand it.
It is.
I just offended a whole bunch of people listening, didn't I?
It doesn't matter. Like I feel the same way about 311. Like I don't want to hear anything they have to say.
Yeah.
I just want to hear their music.
Yeah. There's some bands that I dig the music but don't dig the lyrics.
Yeah.
There's some bands where I really dig the lyrics, but I'm like, the music behind this is terrible.
Yeah.
But I think that's the curse of people who are into music is you pick everything apart. You don't just take it for the whole.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And everybody's an a-hole.
Yeah.
So after you started high school, did you always have an interest in cars?
So I did. So my dad was a mechanic when he first started out.
Okay.
And my family, uncles, dad were always into cars.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was always into cars. My dad did this too, growing up.
So you kind of had the stereotypical. And when I say stereotypical, I mean that like the male upbringing. When you think about my dad taught me about cars.
Yep.
Also, your fucking name is Guy Rocco Tiberio. You're the most manly person.
I won't say most manly. Maybe most Italian in Oswego, but not manly.
Well, you're not toxic masculinity whatsoever, which is great. But like definitely like when you're like, this guy's definitely got a big dick. I can tell by his name, but he doesn't swing it, and that's good.
Well, now you set an expectation that
Nobody's gonna become looking for the proof. It's fine. But so, because like I don't know shit about cars because it was never a thing. My dad sat at the kitchen table smoking cigarettes my whole life. Luckily, I learned how to fish as much as I got, and how to be a real dick to everybody I meet. So I got that going for me. But so you've always had a penchant for, so you kind of came up with the general knowledge.
Yeah.
And always had a penchant for like knowing what to do and stuff like that.
Yeah, like he would always let me like help him as a kid because I was like a hands-on kid. Like I liked playing with things that you would have to build or touch. Like I love video games, but if it was video games or go build a ramp for your bike or something like that, like I would do that all the time.
Right.
And he always tried to include me with that stuff, like to teach me. Like I remember as a kid, 7, 8 years old, in the garage taking apart an engine with him.
Yeah.
So like I think he was trying to teach me skills, but it was kind of backwards because at the same time, as I started growing up, I'm like, maybe I want to work on cars. Like, no, you don't do that. Like, that sucks. Like, that's a terrible job. Like, you're gonna hurt yourself. You don't make good money doing it. And the industry from like when he was doing it in the 70s to when I started doing it in the 90s is far different.
Sure.
You know, the technology aspect, all the
Even
electrical
just from
stuff.
you when you started to now, it's changed wildly again.
How much it changes every year is insane, and the amount of training that I go to and things that I try and do to stay up on it, it's exhausting.
Right.
So I almost can't wait to retire.
It's like a constant job.
Yeah.
Because there's enough technology in cars that changes constantly. Like it's a bitch to keep up with.
Yeah. Well, and then as someone who's doing it, I have to learn it. But then I also have to learn it in a way because I'm teaching it to other people.
Yeah.
So now I have to like pick things apart because I have 2 years with these guys who I'm teaching.
Really?
So I have to say, what is the most important thing that you need to know in these 2 years?
Yeah.
I could teach someone for 10 years about everything that they need to know, and that would still be a fraction of it.
So how does that work with the college course then? So you get 2 full years with them?
So the program's a 2-year program. Regardless of what skill set you come in with, like some kids come in and
with nothing.
With nothing. Like they don't even know how to Velcro their shoes. And then some people come in, hey, I lived on a farm and I've been fixing tractors since I was 6.
Right.
So it's like, all right, well, I have a class of this mixed.
Yeah.
How do I?
That seems really hard.
It's really hard, but I love it because no day is ever the same.
Yeah.
Like even when I teach, like every year I teach the same class. It's never the same.
Right.
Based on what I have in terms of student knowledge and previous experience, what comes in the door that day to work on. So that aspect I love.
Yeah.
And then I get to like travel around all day long to these different students who are at some stage of this learning process and flick the light switch for them.
Yeah.
And like to see, a kid who knew nothing about cars doing whatever task it is I'm teaching him and see him get it and it kind of click, like that's awesome. Like
it's a very more laxed classroom.
Oh yeah.
Like I brought my car there for the kids to work a ton. Even when you were at the high school before there, like it's still very organized and it's still very high level stuff the learning that's going on. But that makes sense what you're saying, where everybody's at a different level, where it's like, all right, you need your brakes done. Great, come in. Hey, you do his brakes. You do his oil change. Like, so that that's the level they're on, to where if something bigger comes in, you've got the kids that can do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, but like kind of awesome. How do you? So basically, then every student, because if you've got a class of like 30,
Our classes are of 20. We cap them at 20.
that's
So we have 20.
awesome.
Yep.
So if you have 20 kids, though, you essentially got 20 different levels. So really, you've got to have an individual plan for all 20.
Yes. Which that's the exhausting part, is trying to find enough things to keep them engaged.
Right.
And also, there has to be a slight amount of entertainment to it, because if they
Right.
get bored,
Oh, yeah.
they're not going to like it.
Sure.
So how do I make this entertaining and palatable to them? How do I make it a learning experience?
Right.
How do I get them the skills that they need? But how do I also try and level them up?
Yeah.
So a lot of what I'm doing is finding like their level of comfort and setting them somewhere just above that to kind of every time raise the stakes a little bit. Because the bottom line is, when they leave my program in 2 years, they're going to go out into a shop and start working.
Yeah.
And they're either going to be successful or they're going to get spit on and kicked out the door, and then obviously that's not good for anyone.
Does your program certify them?
So certification is kind of a tough one. We give them lots of certifications, but the certification that matters in the industry is called ASE.
Yeah.
No one can do that aside from ASE.
Okay.
So they have to go to ASE and pass their
Right.
test. Now we prepare them for that.
Yeah, right.
And we're
It's like you'd be able to go get that after
correct.
your course.
Correct. And we're an ASE master certified program.
Oh, nice.
So like ASE has come in and said, "Hey, stamp of approval, you're good enough."
Yeah. Is that the college, or is that you personally?
It's our automotive program. So
Okay, so it's not. There's a few different teachers.
Yes,
in the
yeah.
whole
So there's
program.
there's 3 of us full-time teachers there who do this to kind of keep the industry moving in our area, because all the local shops, they come to us like trying to hire people,
Right.
and some of them
Are those different levels then of courses between you 3?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so we all teach like a mixture of them. So like every day we have 2 classes. My classes are 3 hours long apiece.
Yeah.
So every day I have what we call a first year class, which is kind of more fundamental, introductory,
Sure.
and then the other class I'll have that day will be a second year class.
Right.
So it kind of flip flops, which is nice because you're not always in one
Yeah.
area, but then you're also, you're making that relationship with the new kids,
Right.
but then growing that relationship with the kids that you had last year that were new kids.
Yeah.
So
now, is it mostly because it is a community college?
yes,
So anybody can go there technically.
anyone could go. Yes.
But did you find that it's mostly just kids that are trying to add some stuff, or that blew off high school to an extent?
So it's a good mixture of everything.
Okay.
So we have some kids that knew that this is what they wanted to do since they were young.
Also, do you call them kids even when they're like 30?
I call them kids just because
Because you're the teacher.
Yeah, I'm the teacher.
Yeah. Well, you come from a high school also.
Well, yes, I taught the high school for a while, so
Yeah.
that I have that ingrained in my head.
Right.
So I call them kids, but they're really not. They're all adults.
Yeah.
And I've had students that are older than me.
Really?
I've had a couple guys who are retired, and they're just coming back because they want to learn to work on
Little
their own car.
refresher,
Yeah.
stuff.
So this guy who's 65 years old sitting in my class, I'm like, "Hey kids, come over here and look at this," which I think he likes. So,
I think when I'm 65, I'd
Yeah.
like that too.
but yeah, it's a melting pot of every different ethnicities, ages, skill levels.
Yeah. I
you
think
know,
that actually
backgrounds.
adds to the excitement.
Oh, it's totally like it's super exciting, and the environment that's there. It's like it's not a traditional school teacher-student
Right.
relation. Like they all call me Guy. Like we're
Sure.
hanging out.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it's lunchtime. They'll run out. They'll bring people back food. It's like a family environment because we're together for 6 or 7 hours a day.
Right. And at
4 days a week.
At this point, how long have you been at the college?
This is my 10th year at the college.
Okay.
And I taught at the high school for 10 years before that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, because you're what, 41?
41,
You'll be
yeah.
42 this year, I think.
Yeah, I'll be 42 this year.
And then, God, so you had to have landed at this high school like immediately after college.
The high school when they hired me, I was still in college.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got hired before I actually graduated.
Now that's got to be night and day because there it would be Mr. Tiberio.
Yes.
Mr. T, I'm sure.
That's what they called me, Mr. T, yeah.
Yeah. But also you're working, that's with children.
Yes.
Now when you worked we're kind of starting at the present and going backwards
That's
instead
cool.
of building up. But when you were at the high school, did you have different levels there as well? Like
Yep.
freshman, sophomore? Like,
Yep. I had 4 different classes that kind
So
of
was there a level
progressed.
for each one?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't necessarily you can only take this as a freshman, but it was
This is the intro.
this is the intro class, then
Yeah.
this is the next. They were sequenced.
Right.
And then traditionally you would have students start, freshman or sophomore year, and then
Yeah.
the later class it was a double blocked class. So really, seniors were the only ones who had room in their schedule for it,
Right.
unless they didn't do like band or another elective, whatever. So it kind of hashed its way out that way.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the high school. Like, what I didn't like is all the babysitting that I'd have to do in, do I don't want to say teacher bullshit, but teacher, like, I wanted to teach automotive. Right. I didn't want to have to go to pep assemblies.
There's so much red tape.
Yes, and all the paperwork and all the meetings that I had to, like, I'm not a teacher. I didn't go to college to be a teacher. I have no teacher training. I was just someone who happened to know.
Now, that's interesting what you just said.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just because I was we're kind of like, say, going backwards, we're going to get to college and like how you came up through high school.
Yep.
But you don't have to have any sort of teacher, quote unquote, teacher training because of your specialty.
Because of my specialty, yep.
Wow.
So the qualifications you had to have, they called it a provisional teaching certificate.
Yeah.
And basically what it boils down to is anyone who has a teaching certificate hasn't been trained in the trades.
Yeah.
And anyone in the trades could make quadruple the amount of money in the trades.
Yeah.
So, like, they have a hard time getting people to come out of the trades to come back and teach.
Right.
So, and they certainly wouldn't be able to get someone who's in the trades to say, all right, quit your job, go to college for 4 years to be a teacher and come back.
Yeah.
So basically you have to have...
But you've extended your degree.
Quite a bit, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to get that certificate, all you have to have is an associate's degree.
Yeah.
And... which I don't even know if that's a requirement, but I think like you have to say I'm going to get it within so many years. And then you have to have some industry certifications, and you have to have, I think it was 5,000 hours of work experience in the field.
Right.
So at that point in time when I was graduating college, obviously I was graduating with my bachelor's degree in automotive technology. But I also had more than 5,000 hours in the field, and at that point I was already a master certified technician.
By the time you got out of college.
Yeah, because I was working in shops
right.
while I was in college, and even before I started in high school.
Yeah.
So they basically said, all right, well, you meet all the qualifications, and we can't find someone with a teaching certificate to do this, so we'll grant you this provisional certificate.
Yeah.
So I took the job, got that certificate, loved it, but then I quickly realized that if you're going to be a teacher and you want to make any sort of money, you have to continue your education, and you have to climb the educational ladder.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that too because stereotypically people think, or there's a thing that teachers don't make enough money, right? Mm-hmm. But like at my school particularly, I've seen because it's public knowledge. You can look up what teachers make.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my god, a lot of these teachers are making absurd money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh well, okay, this one's been here for 35 years.
Yeah.
This one has their master's degree. Like, and you start seeing the different levels, and you're like, yeah, when you come in, sure, you're making $40,000 a year if you're lucky, but if you put in that work within 5 years, you can be doubling, almost tripling what you're making.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like the breakdown of how far away you can it's just too much money.
It's money. It's also like is the teacher doing it?
Yeah.
The time that you put in so you're teaching full time, but then you're going for your master's degree or your doctorate degree or whatever.
So you're going to school full time, teaching full time.
Yep.
And if you're running a shop full time and a family full time.
Well, and so when I did my master's degree, that's when I joined AP. So
and I'm doing the band.
I was teaching full time. I was doing my master's degree. I was in AP. I didn't have kids at the time, but I was also still working on cars and then working at the shop over the summer.
And not for nothing, we were hitting it pretty hard.
Oh yeah,
we were practicing twice a week, and we were doing shows, sometimes 2 shows a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
It was a time commitment.
I can't believe you made it through that. Also, because I was talking to Rob the other day. You're a worker, where it's just this is just what I have to do.
Yeah.
There's not really thought about it. There's no room to complain because the choice you made.
Correct.
It's I'm just gonna get it done.
And that's how I look at everything. Everything I do is a choice that I made.
Yeah.
So I can't complain about it. And if it's something I don't want to do, I should have made the choice not to do it. Right. So there's no one else to blame or to bitch to about it because I control my own destiny. I control my day, my schedule, what I'm doing. And if I fucked up, I got to deal with the consequences of that.
Not for nothing though, too. Those were all of your favorite things though at that moment.
Of course.
Where we loved doing the band and is it tedious to pack up our gear and do a show and then play for an hour, sit for 6 hours, drive home, unpack? Yeah, it sucked, but
that was the
awesome.
only part of it that sucked. And
exactly.
I would say the only part that sucked was not even all the equipment loading. It was only the last load.
Yeah.
To where we got back to my house at 3 a.m. and now we got to carry everything back in the basement.
That was awful.
Yeah. But that was the cost of admission for everything else.
Right.
So,
that's true. Yeah.
So we swallowed it. We did it.
Yeah, and then even the stuff in the garage though too, like doing the side business. That's still enjoyable to an extent. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sure there's projects that were more annoying than others, but as a whole,
well, you always have that. Yeah, as a whole.
I think that's the beauty of your brain is that you're a big picture guy.
Yeah.
So like, while there's these little annoyances daily or minute to minute, at the end of the day, I'm making music. I get to work on cars. Like, really, I've got it whipped. This is awesome.
Yeah, and the way I look at it, as soon as any of these millions of pots that I have my hand in become unpleasurable, I could stop like that.
That's true
like
too, yeah.
the day that this garage becomes a pain in my ass, I'm
Yeah,
done.
right.
Like I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
I want to do it, or I'm doing it for the betterment of my family or my kids or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a time where they're not dependent on me.
Right.
And then if I don't want to do this, I don't.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always tried to do, is always set myself up or set up my future for when things change and I don't enjoy it, I could stop and move on to something else. So
yeah, which is, I mean, it's got to be rewarding to kind of watch what you can do with the family because of all the extra work and stuff like that also.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get into exact numbers, but I got to think, like, your teaching salary is what it is, and I got to think that your side work of just working out of your garage has to hit at least half or almost more of what your teaching salary is.
I wish it did. So and I can.
I'm sure
say
it fluctuates year over year too, depending on the projects.
It fluctuates on projects, but I can also say, like I told you, the more education you get with teaching.
Yeah.
So I learned, I don't want to say the game, but I learned how it worked very early.
Right.
And I knew, like, all right, I'm young. When I have kids, I'm not going to have time to go do my master's degree and everything. So I did it young. And then after I got my master's degree, I looked at the salary schedule. So if you, I don't know if you ever looked at a teacher's salary schedule. Like, you can go online to any school district and see, and it's basically, there's columns this way for the amount of education you have, and then there's steps this way for the amount of years you're there.
Right.
So up in, well, I'm going to do it from your side. Up in this corner is where I started. Like, when I started in Oswego, I think my pay was $28,000 a year.
Right.
Like,
which is nothing.
It was nothing, especially for, like, if you're a good teacher, you're spending 50, 60 hours a week doing your job minimum.
Yeah.
You know? So I saw that, but then I looked down in this corner where some teachers in the district I knew that were there for years, and I knew they were all the way over here, and I'm like, holy shit, they're making that kind of money.
Yeah.
Said, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
So I started getting my degrees.
They're upwards of like 6 figures down there.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what I mean. Like, the gap is crazy.
It is crazy. So unfortunately, they reward you not based on how good of a teacher you are, but on longevity.
How good you look on paper.
And how good you look on paper. So after my master's degree, and I would even say my master's degree, all the schooling that I've got past that don't relate to what I do or what I teach at all.
But it still boosts your salary.
But it boosts my salary. So my big argument was...
Do you have an example of that for, like, what's something that you learned that has nothing to do with what you do?
So my master's degree is in educational administration, which is what you need to be a principal, a superintendent, all that stuff.
That obviously doesn't relate to cars.
Doesn't relate to cars, or I won't say it doesn't relate to teaching, but it's basically like management of a school.
Right.
Which, after my first
I almost
class...
feel like that related more to when you worked at the high school, not necessarily the college.
Well, it did. Yeah. And my thought behind that when I went into that program was, I want to give myself another path. So let's say one day I don't want to teach, but I still want to work in the school. This will allow me to do something different.
You could be a dean.
Yeah, I could do any of that stuff.
Sure.
In my first class, on the first week, when they started talking to me about what those jobs meant, I said, fuck no, I will never do this.
Really?
Like, yeah, I wanted nothing to do with it, but I was in the program. So, hey, if I finish and get this degree, I'll get a $10,000 a year pay raise.
Right.
So I did.
That's worth it,
Yeah. I'll never use any of that stuff to teach my students. Yeah. But then after that, it became, well, now you just need X amount of hours. So every, like, 10 or 15 credit hours past your master's degree, we give you another $5,000 pay raise.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes that don't benefit my students at all, so I could move over.
Yeah.
But the problem was, is I went to the school and I said, why can't I take automotive related classes that will directly make me a better teacher in what I do and benefit my students? And they're like, well, they're not graduate level classes because they're not taught at a university.
Right.
It must be garbage.
Right.
Like, but this is my specialty. Like, why can't that count? And it doesn't. So I'm like, fine, I'm just gonna have to play the game. So then I had to take all these classes like that had nothing to do with me. Like one of them was like elementary education.
Oh.
I taught in a high school. Like, can I grab some nuggets of information that might be helpful?
Sure.
Maybe.
But so how long is a course like that?
A whole semester.
Which is what, 6 weeks?
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a long time to knowing going into it. You're like, this is bogus.
Yeah. And I did it because I knew the outcome would result in a pay raise. So you're getting all these teachers who are taking all these classes that may not be making them a better teacher, but it's giving them the pay raise. Why not open it up to say, you know what, you teach art or you teach XYZ, go take some training or some classes in that, and we'll give you the pay raise for that. Get better at what you actually do. And maybe some of those things are beneficial to, a general ed teacher. If you're maybe a high school math teacher or something, maybe that applies to all those other things. But most of the stuff that I have in my educational portfolio have benefited the automotive side of what I do, none.
Yeah.
But all the automotive training I go to every year, I go to 40 to 60 hours a year in training.
Right. And you're using that, but you're not getting any kind of pay increase.
That's what I'm using every day to make my class better and make it
Right.
better for my students, but it does nothing for me in terms of pay.
Yeah, that's silly.
Yeah.
But you'd probably make more money if you were at a university versus a community college.
So
Like a college proper.
right now, counterparts that I have at the university I went to, at Southern Illinois University, in their auto program, I make more than they do at the community college. But
Because of all the extra stuff.
because of all the extra stuff that I've done. Like I have 70 credit hours past my master's degree.
Yeah.
Which is the maximum you could get without getting a doctorate. And I'm not going to get a doctorate. Like, I don't want anyone to call me doctor, and I don't want to have to do the work of a doctorate. Like, it wouldn't be worth it for me.
Right.
For the little bump in pay I would get, it's just not worth the work or the cost of the program.
But if something changes, because, these contracts and shit changes constantly. If something changes, you're not far off. Like, it would be an easy jump.
Oh, yeah.
Other than the actual pain in the ass of the work.
Yep.
That's kind of awesome.
So, I don't know that I'd ever do that much more because now I'm at the point in my career where I'm making enough money to support my family and to where we have a good quality of life. Like, I don't need to be rich. I just need to be comfortable and know that there's always going to be a roof over my head. My kids are always going to have food, and that we can have some of the basic things, that they could have, some positive experiences and activities that they're a part of. Like, that's really all I'm after.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's to me one of the reasons why you're quote unquote successful is because you're not looking for anything above what you want. And you're one of the rare people that knows what he's looking for. Yeah. So a lot of us are still like, I don't know, we'll see.
Well, I appreciate the fact that what I do looks like success on the outside.
I'm sure most people feel that way.
Yeah, like you always feel like I just got to work a little harder to achieve it, but it's all in the perception. Like someone who's not in it looks at you and you're like, oh, they're making it. Yeah. Like I could look at just looking out of my garage right now. I have the oldest cars that we own on the street. We're the only people without new cars.
So this is a very rich neighborhood, ritzy.
Yeah,
and I feel like you're probably in this scope of existence, you're the bottom of the barrel.
We're the dirtbags.
Yeah.
Like, we're the people that when we moved in, everyone's like, oh, there goes the neighborhood.
Right. I come over here and I'm like, Jesus Christ, guy, you make too much money. This is ridiculous. And all your neighbors are like, look at these poor pieces of shit.
Yep. So, but like, we're happy where we're at. Like, we don't look at everyone else and be like, oh, they all got new cars. We got to do the same thing. Or they have a bigger house than ours. Like, ours is probably one of the smaller houses in the neighborhood.
Right.
We have older cars that are paid off, so we don't have car payments.
Yeah.
And
well, not for nothing. That's kind of like my car's essentially on its last legs. I don't have the means to get a new car at the moment, but if you can just fix it, why would you want a new car?
That's the thing.
When you can for nothing just take care of it.
Yep. So that money that we would probably spend on a car payment, we do other things with, like we'll go on a vacation or something, and that's the key. Like to my success has been finding that balance of what do we need? Like, we need cars to get around, but we don't need new cars. Right? We need a house. We don't need the biggest house in the neighborhood.
Right.
So we have this. Like, I needed the biggest garage in the neighborhood because the garage is what pays for the house.
Right, for sure, yeah.
So,
but it makes sense too, because like your last house, the first house you bought, it worked for you and Jess while it worked for you guys.
Yeah.
But then it was all right. Now we're talking about having a family.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things too, is like it always seems like there was at least a conversation, so that there was some sort of plan before you guys, like the rest of us, life is happening to, and you're as much as you can trying to create a life.
Well, and we're both planners because we're
Yeah.
both. I don't want to say we have anxiety of the future, but maybe we see what the future could be, and we know what we want our future to be. So we try and start digging a path to what we think we want, and inevitably that changes as things happen, as things go on. Like the house that we bought, our first house. When we saw it, we're like, oh, this is it. It's going to be great. At the time I was working somewhere where I could do this kind of work there. I didn't need a garage.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I had to have a garage was so we could park our cars in it, or I could put a lawnmower in it.
That was the high school then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it had the garage there was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I remember there was just a parking lot
Yep.
of garbage cars.
Yep. So, but like once I went to the college and I couldn't do stuff there, and like a lot of things change, and then we had kids.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, this house that
You guys
we thought was
outgrew that
great,
house,
we
yeah.
outgrew it. So that's when we started looking here. This was a neighborhood we wanted to be in, and like we basically said, like whatever house we do, like the garage has to be.
That's your nucleus, so that's the center point.
Yeah, like the garage has to be something where I could make money, and plus it's nicer here. Like I could be out here working, but the kids can be out here riding their bikes or hanging out in the garage or whatever. Before. If I was trying to make some extra money, I was gone somewhere.
Yeah.
So then I'm not around. So.
Yeah. Now, aside from just the garage, you've done a ton of work in the house also. Like, you finished the basement yourself. I think it's only half finished.
It's half finished, right? I'm in the middle of.
I would say, like, I feel like the last time we talked 2 years ago, there was a plan to finish it.
Yes. So that plan
We'll get there.
Yeah. The plan kind of is in stages. I'm framing right now. I got about half of it framed. But like that's something that happens when I'm not doing this. So like when I have downtime.
Well, that's what I mean is another thing. So 4 projects in the garage, family, full-time teaching, like all these things, and still doing all the work inside.
Trying to.
Well, you took out. What did you do with the?
So I built the fireplace.
Yeah. So, but that's a big project because this was a wall, an outside wall, where there was nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
And now you've got to run gas.
Yeah.
You've got to build the everything to put a fireplace in
Yeah.
there. And you did all of that yourself.
Yep.
You ran the gas lines. Did
I
you have to move your air conditioner?
I had to move the air conditioning. I had to cut a hole, obviously in the side of the house going out.
Yeah.
But I also had to cut the floor out because I had to cantilever the fireplace out, so I had to change the framing. So I had to build walls in the basement to support my living room because I cut half of the floor of the living room out to do the fireplace. And
what in your life makes you certified to do that?
Nothing. So I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So like when I determine I want to do something, I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of research.
Right.
I've always had not a construction background, but my dad was kind of like a jack of all trades guy.
Right.
So I learned something from him. One of my good buddies is in construction, and he built a couple houses. In fact, all the houses behind us right here, he built.
Nice.
So I hung around with him and helped him on some houses. So I learned stuff here and there. And then
It's one of those things that once you learn how to do it, you know how to do it. The tedious part is then doing
doing it and then doing it right.
Well,
And making it not only functional, but look right and be structurally correct.
Sure. So
I'll say before I started doing that fireplace, I felt 80% confident I could do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could make up 20% during. So I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I'm building a wall underneath the house, so if it collapsed, like the wall's there to support it. So, but it all came out marvelous. It came out great. Like, and I learned. Like every time I do a project, I learn something. Like in the old house, I did the bathroom. I literally tore out the whole bathroom down the studs because the builders didn't do it right. It started leaking water in my kitchen. And
that's the thing, a key point too. The builders didn't do it right. Do you feel like because you're a perfectionist and you'll do it right, like even if it comes off wrong, you'll just redo it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'd rather do the work yourself?
100%.
Like that's why you do it with your cars.
Yep.
And stuff like that. Because I know in this particular house there was something about the upstairs
We had lots of problems in this house. Yep.
when they were building it.
Yep.
That shouldn't have been an issue whatsoever. Like common sense stuff.
Yep.
Like even the upstairs floors not even.
Yep.
Which is well, your one job at least is to make the floors even.
Yeah.
This is absurd. Like
So-
it's not really fixable at this point.
No, and
Because-
we fixed everything else, and
Yeah.
the only time you might notice something is if you put a level on it, or
Well, right, yeah, it's not noticeable,
yeah,
but
I notice it
it's
because
enough
I
to
pay
chap
attention
your
to all
ass
those little tiny details.
versus what you paid for the goddamn house.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like you buy something. Like if you go to Honda and buy a new car, you're expecting to get a car that has no problems,
Right.
that functions properly, that the doors work, like all the
Right,
things.
yeah, exactly,
right?
yeah.
So we did the same thing with the house. Like we had a custom home builder do this because that's the only way I could get the garage and all
Yeah.
the stuff. And we're like, oh, we're paying a little bit more than if we went with the regular builder.
Sure.
But it's gonna be made up in the quality.
Yeah.
It's not any better. If
Right.
if anything, I would argue it's shittier.
Really?
Well, at least with the experience we had.
Well, sure. Yeah.
The
it's-
guys who are
that's
building the
so-
track
yeah.
homes, they build that same house 800 times.
That's true. Yeah.
Even though there's some houses that may look like this on the outside,
The insides are very different.
we designed the whole floor plan and
Yeah.
everything. So this was the first time they built it. So I'm sure if they built 8 more of these, they'd learn all the mistakes that they made.
I feel like while they were building this house or any custom house, there's a lot of that'll work.
That's it's
Instead of like it's got to be like precise in this every single
Yep.
time. Like you said, when they do it 800 times, you can do it in your sleep.
Yeah.
And you know it's gonna be fine. And here they're like, that'll hold.
Well, and that's exactly the mentality, and I think that's the mentality of a lot of people now is it's good enough, or hey, it's not my house,
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I'm a perfectionist too. Is why I don't do a lot of things. Because I have to really, really want to undertake that project.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to be like just annoyed by it.
Yep.
So I just can't. I can't fathom, especially like knowing you're getting paid to do a job. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a lazy man, but God damn it, if I'm doing my job, I want to do my job to the best of my ability. Or I don't want to do that job anymore, and I go find one
Yep.
that I give a shit about. Like, I just can't imagine.
Well, because at the end of the day, whose name is on that job?
Right, exactly.
Your
like,
name's on it.
Yeah, and like I'm not big on personal pride or anything like that, but like I care about what I'm offering back to the world.
Yeah.
Like whatever that you want to call that. So
It's almost like writing music. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't write a shitty song and then release it. If you wrote a shitty
Yeah.
song, you'd be like, ooh, this one's going down to the vault.
Yeah. Yeah, we
your
don't talk
name's
about
on
this
it.
one.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
your name's on it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm big on personal pride. Like that's something I try and teach my students. Like every job you do, you need to do it like as if it was your car.
Yeah.
Or the car show analogy. When it goes to a car show, do you want
Right.
people to say ooh or
Yeah.
ooh? Like it's the same word, but it's how you say it.
Right. I think it's always something too that I feel like you said when you do this side work, especially like the normal maintenance stuff. There's a stereotype about going to a car shop.
Yeah.
That they're gonna take you for a ride.
Yep.
Like a brake job. If you go and get a brake job done, you can easily spend $1,200, or you can spend $100 on the parts and throw somebody $50.
Yep.
Because there's no reason to spend $1,000 on labor. That makes no sense. And they're gonna find a ton of other problems like
Yeah.
or that they're not gonna address, or they're gonna fix just enough.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It's unfortunate.
So, and I always try and fight that because it's always a losing battle because
Yeah.
the name for us car guys has been made decades before I was even born.
Sure,
You know,
yeah.
so it's something I always have to fight. But I try and make sure that when people bring me their car, that they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That I'm honest with them. I charge them a fair price.
Yeah.
And I'm honest with every car that comes in here, I look it over.
Right.
Like not because I'm trying to upsell stuff, because quite frankly, I don't want to upsell anything
Yeah.
because that just delays all my cars I have lined up after
It's just
that.
more for you to do.
Yeah, but I'm also at the point well, obviously these people are bringing their cars to me because they don't know. So
Right.
I need to let them know, is there something unsafe?
Yeah.
Is there something that could make the car ride better, stop, whatever it is?
Yeah.
And I always present it to them like, hey, you don't need to do this right now, but just so you know,
Right.
this is...
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention. This is happening, or soon this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Or like the car out in the street right now, it came in for one thing, and I went to go test drive it afterwards, and the car sounded like it was going to fall apart. So I'm like,
Right.
holy shit. So I bring it
Yeah.
back in here, and I look at something unrelated to what I was doing because I didn't even check it before because it's not what it was here for. And I found all this stuff that was incredibly dangerous to drive, like to the point where I wouldn't even drive it down the street.
Wow.
So I called the guy and said, hey, man, I hate to give you this bad news, but I found this while I was test driving. I said, I don't want to put you in the position where you feel like you're forced to fix it right now. I mean, I'll certainly fix it for you if you want, but if you're not going to fix it now, you need to get a tow truck here. Like, you can't drive this thing home.
Would you be like, if you're not going to fix it, I 100% am not comfortable working on it?
Well, and I told him, I said, if you're not going to fix it, I'm not comfortable test driving it to make sure that what I did is right.
Right, yeah.
I said, and I don't feel comfortable with you driving it or putting your family in it.
Right.
So if you don't have the money to fix it right now, you don't want to fix it right now, I get it. Like, it's a surprise. It's an extra thing you didn't know.
Sure. But
it's not safe to drive. You need to get a tow truck and tow it back to your garage until we can address it.
Yeah.
And it's a guy that I've been working on this car for years. I work on all those other cars. He's like, whatever you say it needs to do, just go ahead and do it. I'll figure out the money end of it later. So I feel like I've built this trust with people where I'll tell them, what needs to be done for your safety.
Right.
And then what you should do to make the car perform the way it's designed to.
Right.
Or what you should do now to prevent more expensive things down the road.
Yeah.
And it seems to have served me well. People continue to come to me and pass my name around. Like, I'll get 2 or 3 text messages or calls a day from people that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And the people who gave them my number, I don't even know. It's like this 3rd or 4th chain of people.
Yeah.
So
It's been a long time, realistically. Like, 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. So now let's backtrack to high school. We had an automotive program in high school, which I feel like is rare.
It's starting to come back.
Is it?
It is starting to come back.
At that time, was it more?
It was the time that we were there was right when they were starting to try and get rid of stuff like that. Because
I was stuttering.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I mean, just think about in high school. What did everyone tell you? What do you need to do after high school?
Get a job?
Well, you need to go to college.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Why do I need to go to college?
Yeah.
So I teach at a college.
Sure.
I go talk at high schools, career fairs, and I tell people you don't need to go to college.
Right.
You only need to go to college if you know why you're going to college.
Right.
And if you have a path that requires college.
Right.
Because there's so many things you could do that can make tons of money and be very satisfying and fulfilling that don't require you to ever even drive by a college.
Right.
So I'm sure my college probably doesn't appreciate me telling people you don't need to go to college, but unless you have a reason, it's not something you just do because that's what you're expected to.
Right. Well, I think it's smart though, because our society also really pushes you to figure your life out before you know shit about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, which is weird.
Or know shit about the outside world around you.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, by the time you just be stepping to the outside world, between 18 and 20, you're supposed to have your whole life mapped out.
Yeah.
And just the first time you're really stepping out into the world, where like, wow, how does anything work? That's why I'm always excited when somebody will take a year off or 2 years off and then start going to college like when you're 20, somewhere between 20 and 22. But I also understand the pressure of being like, all right, I gotta go. Because most people I know that have gone to college don't use their degrees.
Yeah.
Like even you just explained in great detail all the extra college that you've done that is stereotypically good college for teaching, and you're a teacher, has nothing to do with your job.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's crazy, yeah. But you're right, your college probably doesn't appreciate that. But it's a community college, they're fine.
Well, and again, I'm not pushing people away from college, but I'm pushing them towards finding what they're passionate about, what they want to do, and then finding what's the best path to get there.
Right.
And if it's college, great.
Yeah.
Or if it's just going out in the field and working, gaining experience, great. If it's an internship, great. If it's a union apprenticeship, great. If it's, job shadowing people, whatever it is, like, figure out what's required for that thing.
Yeah.
Because college isn't the thing for everything.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, especially of our age groupers, I feel like that time was really everyone needs to go to college time.
Yeah.
And so many of my friends
I
went
feel like
to
we were the
college.
last big push of that.
Yeah.
I feel like now it's starting to be like what you're saying. Like it's more about what do you want to do, and let's create a path towards that instead of like, now you're not starting your life until you're 26 out of college. You can start your life at 20 if you know where. It's just like you said, as long as you know your path.
Yeah. And the important thing is letting people find their path or what they want. Like, don't force it down their throat.
Yeah.
Like, give them a little taste of some things, expose them to the world around them. Like, that's why I go in and talk to a lot of automotive classes at high schools.
Yeah.
And obviously those kids are there because either they like cars or something, but they only know what they know.
Yeah.
So they come in thinking, oh, the only thing I could do in the automotive world is fix broken cars. Well, there's thousands of jobs that are automotive related that support the automotive industry that these kids can do with those skills, but they don't even know it exists.
Right.
So I go in there and try and explain that stuff to them and show them the huge world that's out there. And I'm only scratching the surface at that point in time.
Like, not for nothing though, but I feel like you walk that talk to an extent also because you touch a lot of different things where you do routine maintenance in your garage. Mm-hmm. You build cars from scratch in your garage.
Yep.
Also, you teach at various levels. Also, your summer job don't you build race cars there too?
Yeah, build race cars there. Yeah.
Like particularly high-end race cars.
Yep.
Like so even that is just like there's 6 different things right there. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
And that's all still touching the car. Like you're forgetting about the people who design the car.
Right.
Who maintain the robots and machines that assemble the car, or the welders, or the people who make parts, or all these tools you see in this garage.
Yeah.
Automotive people had to design those tools and figure out how to make them. Like
that's true.
There's so much.
Good luck using regular tools when it costs for car tools. God, it sucks.
Yep. So it's just there's so much out there that people don't know.
Yeah.
And I feel that our current way of schooling and the structure of our just everything, our structure of lifestyle, government, school is all backwards for progress.
I agree.
But I don't know how to shake it up and fix it.
Well, it's tough to be because you can only do it on your individual level.
Correct.
Right? And it's tough because when you start trying to make any case for change, nobody wants to.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm starting to get really upset in my job for the same reason where I'm like, hey, if our goal is this for these particular kids, why aren't we doing this, this, and this? And like you go in and you're like, hey man, we should do this for these particular kids, and they're like, yeah, totally. And you're like, well,
why are we not?
But like, right, why don't we? Like, it's the right answer. You're correct, but we're not gonna, or we can't for whatever red tape reason you're talking about. It's disheartening.
Yeah.
It's extremely disheartening, and I was hoping at my level because I'm just a para. I'm not actually anything in the school.
But see, that kind of thinking is incorrect. You are the, I'm going to say slight authority figure because you're not the teacher.
Sure.
But you're the person that the students are going to listen to. It's just
yes.
like my kids won't listen to a damn word I fucking say.
Yeah.
But if like one of their uncles walks in here and tells them the same thing, oh, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like it's because of who it's coming from.
Yeah.
Like you're like the secret squirrel.
Yeah.
You're the secret weapon that the teachers should be employing to help make that connection from what they're trying to do and where the students
See, and that's what I agree with that. And I have the kids buy him, especially me personally, because I'm very different than the rest of them. I'm like the black sheep of the school.
But that's what they need. There's not a lot of black sheep there.
Especially the kids I deal with, that's what they respond to. But then that's why it's disheartening to go to administrative and be like, hey man, like so-and-so needs this, and this is what we should be doing, and this will help overall. And like, what about this as a program? Like, because I've pitched them multiple programs too, where I'm like, these just make sense and these will help, and they're like, no, we agree.
That's why we're not doing it.
Like, who's gonna pay for it? Or like, and then you start feeling like, all right, the goal, just like the medical field, the goal isn't to help; it's to just kind of keep everybody where they are, sustain. And we'll deal with something if something horrible happens, but otherwise, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, I think. And this is just my view from being in different types of schools and then getting that master's degree in administration. Like, looking at like an administrator's job, like they're obviously trying to run things with the school and everything, but a good chunk of their job is putting out parent fires.
Yes.
Like, man, I hate to say it, but there are so many parents that are awful and train wrecks and that are ruining kids.
Right.
And then they send those kids off to school and expect you to fix it all.
Yes.
And then it's like, well, they were with you all day. Well, yeah, but you have to do stuff when they come home to you. You can't let it be a free-for-all or do whatever they want and then expect them to come to school.
They also ruin their whole psyche with the way they're talking to them.
Yes.
And so their kids are already feeling a certain way.
Yep.
And then they're getting pulled in multiple directions. I agree. It's heartbreaking, really, when you can see both sides like that. Because that's one of the things I told my bosses. I was like, what we need is to go to these school board meetings and be like, hey, guess what? Your kid's an asshole because you're an asshole. But nobody will talk to adults that way.
Yep.
But that's 100% the truth. It's this common sense stuff too, where it's like, hey, the city or the town wants the school to do more and to achieve more and to do more, and then when they turn around, they're like, all right, here's your referendum. Here's what we need to do what you just asked. And they're like, whoa, we're not going to pay for it. Yeah. You figure out, just do more with what you have.
Yeah. Well, and that's the parents thing is always the thing. Like the administrators are there. I don't want to say to appease the parents, but to minimize the outcry, especially with like social media and oh, can you believe the school's doing this? And like,
right.
Step inside a school for 1 minute,
yeah,
and see what these people are dealing with.
Right.
Like, anyone who wants to be an administrator or on a school board, man, I give you lots of credit for wanting to jump into that fire.
Yeah.
But they also have to play that delicate balance of trying not to piss people off and tell them the truth of why some kids are the way that they are. Right. Like, man, I remember as a high school teacher, like having to call home and talk to parents. And within 30 seconds of that parent picking up the phone, I knew exactly why the kid was the way they were, right. Had the problems that they were. And now the best part about my job at the college is I can't legally talk to parents. It's the greatest thing. Like the student has to sign a form saying that I could talk to their parents.
That's because you're technically dealing with adults.
Correct.
So it's like it's on them at that point.
Yep.
That's gotta be so much nicer.
Well, and that was part of the reason why I didn't like the high school situation is I had to do so much, which obviously I understand the importance of it all. Yeah. But it's not what I wanted to do.
Well, it's an uphill battle though too, because you're constantly getting pulled backwards.
Yeah.
And you can't really get ahead, and it's something you don't want to be doing anyways. Like you're trying desperately to help kids, and every step of the way is trying to stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating. So. But in high school, so you did take the automotives program throughout the high school we went to. Was that tiered as well, or was there only one?
So there were I think 2 classes, 2 or 3, I think.
Automotives 1 and 2.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that was the initial drive for me to want to become a teacher.
Really?
Because I had some knowledge, I had some experience at that time with cars.
Yeah.
Because I started fixing people's cars to make money to buy guitars. That's why I started doing what I do now, is purely just to have money to buy guitars.
Well, at this same time, you started, when did Noozle start?
So that started my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, because I don't think automotives was available for freshmen.
Like the small engines class.
Oh,
was.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some class that was available then.
Yeah.
So I started back then, but I was already into guitar by then and kind of messing around with, jamming with different people, or what I thought was jamming. It was not good.
Yeah.
But I started working on cars, like buddies' cars, like as people started getting their license.
Right.
Hey, I'll do the brakes on that car for $100. And
yeah.
After I did a couple brake jobs, I'd mosey on over to Guitar Center, and before I knew it, I had like 15 guitars, and I was working on people's cars all the time. But anyways, I was in those classes, and the teacher that we had was not good. Like some of the stuff they were teaching was not accurate. Yeah. Because they were never technicians. They were one of the guys worked at a parts store. Like he worked at O'Reilly's, or whatever the store was. The store of the day.
He a teacher then?
He was a teacher.
So basically the opposite of what you became.
Yes.
You became a car guy that teaches, whereas a teacher trying to teach cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
So
I'm looking around, and I would help students, and even the teacher saw my skill level and would pair me up with other students. So I'm
and hate you secretly.
Well, maybe, I don't know. But I saw that, and I noticed that kids were getting better when I was working with them than when he was helping. So I'm this guy sucks. This is a disservice to these. They're coming here because they want to learn this stuff.
Yeah. Well, something you're already passionate about.
Yeah.
And to watch somebody kind of piss on it.
Yeah.
It hurts.
And that guy, I think, was there purely for, the experience of teaching or the summers off, whatever it was.
Yeah.
He did not seem like he had enough knowledge or experience or desire to do what I wanted out of the class. Yeah. I took the class I wanted to learn more, and I don't feel that I learned more. Yeah. So I'm maybe we need something better. So that was
tough
kind
too, because those stereotypical trades electives, usually you would be these, because that's what they chose to teach, they should be really locked in and more passionate about it. Yeah. And, the shop teacher was awesome.
Yeah.
He was great. it's just weird to think that, because I never took anything in automotives. That would have fucking sucked.
Yeah, so I like the guy. He was a nice enough guy.
Sure.
But I don't feel that the students who were taking that class got everything they should have. And the good students, the people who had some natural ability, they were going to do fine with or without them.
Right, yeah.
But like the
But
students.
anybody can become good.
Yes.
And that's important. Like,
Well, especially that foundational building block stage.
yeah, I think you can be lazy and just be like, all right, the people that have the aptitude are going to be fine. The people that don't are never going to get it.
Yeah.
No bullshit. It's a skill like anything else.
Yep.
And anybody can get really good at this
Yeah.
if you're doing your job.
Yep. So that was kind of like my push where I first initially thought, oh, well, maybe I could do this. And then I ended up like not really thinking too much about it. And then when I went to college, I went to Wabanzi through their auto program, the program that I'm teaching in. I went through that program. And when I was there, my teacher at the time.
I didn't know you went through the same program that you actually run.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So, and the guy who was my teacher who kind of like inspired all this stuff and got me going, I now teach with him. Like, me and him
that's
share an
cool.
office. It's so cool. Like,
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Because I thought, so that means after high school, you went to Wabanzi first?
I went to Wabanzi for 2 years there.
And then down to SIU.
And then I transferred down to SIU for my last 2 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so you didn't have to do full 4 years down there
Yeah,
because of...
Wabanzi had like a 2+2 thing worked out with SIU, so my
nice.
degree is the same exact piece of paper that anyone who paid an absorbent amount of money
Went
to
to
go there
4
for
years
4
at
years.
SIU.
Yeah. So like if I went to apply somewhere, they wouldn't know that I did any less time.
Because it looks like you just did it's just a 4-year degree.
Yeah, it just saved me a bunch of money, and I would venture to say I got a better experience because the two programs were very different in what they did and what they focused on, so I got like the best of both worlds.
Also, probably better to only spend 2 years down in Carbondale.
Yes, yes. Carbondale is not the scenic place people want it to be, I'll tell you that.
Like, Dana went there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun down there, but I wouldn't want to stay down there.
Yeah, much more than a weekend. You're pushing it. So, but yeah, that like I just had good teachers along the way after high school, like college and everything, that kind of like inspired me and showed me the things that I didn't know, and kind of opened my eyes to what teaching would look like. So while I was in college at SIU, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So I started just applying for jobs, and that's right when Oswego was building Oswego East High School. Was my senior year of college. So I just got online, what online was at the time, and found the job posting, and I called up the guy there and said, hey, I know I'm only in college. I know you think I don't have enough experience to do this. I said, but let's just get together and talk. So I drove up here from Carbondale on one Friday afternoon. Me and him met, had a little meeting, and that next Monday he called and offered me a job.
Wow. I wonder if anybody even applied for that aside from you.
So there were some other applicants. Okay. I don't know who they were or if he did any interviewing. But my biggest fear was it's a new school. Yeah. It's a new program. So
they're going to want...
They want someone with experience
there,
to start the program and get it going. And also, like, the budget that's tied to starting a program, like ordering equipment and everything, it's stupid.
Yeah.
And they gave it to a 22-year-old kid right out of college. So
wait, did they tell you, here's the budget for this program, and here, did you write the curriculum? Mm-hmm. So then you have to decide what equipment you need? Like, you literally just got a blank garage.
I got a blank canvas.
Wow.
Like, because no one there, that was their specialty. So
you got to decide, all right, we're going to need 6 car hoists. We're going to need all these different things.
They had the footprint of the building already laid out.
Okay.
So
the stuff that would be built in.
Yeah.
Like
any equipment, anything like that.
But as far as tools and anything free form.
It was all me.
That's crazy.
I
feel like a kid in a candy store.
That's exactly what it was. And I didn't.
Do you remember what your budget was?
I don't know if the number was ever given to me. I think it was, what do you need?
Yeah, it's more like we'll tell you no when you need to be told no.
Well, and that's exactly what it was. So, again, I like to say I'm pretty observant and I learned the game. So I figured out quickly that if I gave them something, it was almost like their instant reaction was just, nope, cut it in half.
Right.
So I started asking for double what I wanted. So when they asked me to have it, we got what we needed. Yeah. And that program was a huge success. I mean, the amount of students that came through that program and had a great experience and that are in the industry now, like within a year or two of that school opening, I was at capacity, and having other teachers, like my buddy who's the woodshop teacher, he had to come teach some of the basic automotive classes because I was full.
Yeah.
So like to me, that said that whatever whatever I did or whatever I chose, in terms of setting up that program and doing it, it worked.
Right. Weren't you recruited from the college? Probably because of that?
Yes.
Also, isn't there a thing in the trades, there's VICA.
Skills USA, yeah. Well, it used to be called VICA when we were in school. Now it's called Skills USA. Yep.
Skills USA. Mm-hmm. Is there a piece of that for automotive?
There is.
Didn't you used to go to nationals and states?
Yep. So when I competed in it my first year at Wabanzi, and I won first place in the state of Illinois.
You personally?
Me personally. So I got to go compete at a national level.
Wait, at one point you were the best guy in Illinois.
At one point, yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is total full circle. 2 years ago, I had a student, one of my students, did the same thing, won first in Illinois, and we took him to nationals, and he won first in the nation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you place in nationals?
I don't remember. It wasn't first. It was like 20, in the mid-20s somewhere.
Still
around
it
was out of 55. So it was every state and then any U.S. territory sends their top person. Yeah. But it was weird. Like I went down there and competed, and there's guys that are like 55 years old competing against me. Because the only qualification is you have to be enrolled in the college course.
Really?
So, like, if like the retired guy in my class,
right.
he could compete in that. Like, he could have had a whole career in that field.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But, I mean, it was an amazing
Well, that's why
experience.
it's still amazing. Even if you place last, you're in such an upper echelon company. Like, you're good.
Yeah. It was cool to see, because you never think, you always have, like, the imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, shit, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, what is it? And then
it had to be even more, like, in a weird way, even more rewarding to have a student place first.
That was like probably one of the highlights of my
in nationals.
career.
That's absurd.
Yep.
To be the best guy
in the nation. So this year, every 2 years, they do a world competition.
Yeah.
This year it's in France, and because he was not this current year, but the year before that, he's within that 2 year window. So they want him to go compete in France for the world competition.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you get to go with that, or you're just a mention because you were the trainer?
Well, so I got to go down to like the state competition and nationals, which was down in Atlanta. The school flew me down there because I was his like coach, mentor, whatever
Do
you
you
want to say.
represent the college then?
Yeah.
So that you'd go pretty much.
An agent of the colleges, I believe, is how they describe it.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I mean, I was down there to help the kid out. Like I couldn't help him during the contest, but he's in a strange town, doesn't know where he's at.
Yeah.
So we kind of hung out.
It's intimidating as heck.
Yeah.
Like you said, it can be the older people, but stereotypically it's these younger kids, and this is depending on where they're going to school. Like that's their first experience out of their house.
Yeah.
And now you got to go to a strange place. Like,
yep.
So yeah, it's nice to have.
It's like the Olympics of automotives. Is basically what it was.
Yeah.
So I went down there for a week with him. We spent some time together. I went to the competition, like cheered him on and watched him throughout the whole thing, but I couldn't interact with him during it.
Right.
But I was down there like kind of support, because I went through it myself as a student.
Yeah.
I kind of was telling him kind of what to expect and that type of stuff. But I mean, he was a rock star. It was awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So
it's funny to me too to think that you're I mean, I know every year there's a number one in the state, but at some point you were number one in the state and you don't even work in a
shop.
Yep. Like that should be on a door somewhere. Number one in the state. Holding on to your high school days. You're like number one 20 years ago.
Right. Like Al Bundy. So, yeah.
So along with doing all this other stuff during high school and everything, that was the first time you played in a band.
Yeah. So Newsel was the first time I played in a band, which was just me and some good friends.
Yeah.
We just did it for fun. Like, of course, every high school kid wants to be famous and a rock star,
Sure,
so
yeah.
you do that, but then you quickly realize how big the world is and
Right.
how small Oswego is.
Hey, if you just look at Oswego, though, just that little tiny town for a while was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of amazing musicians, awesome
the music
bands.
that came out of there was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a fun time, but it was, I mean, out of all, not that I played in a ton of bands, but like that and jamming, like my career highlight was AP. Like, hands down, the best music I think I've ever been a part of, the most fun in terms of us hanging out and doing shows and everything like that is still my one that got away. Yeah. Because I think because it didn't end on my terms.
I hate it. Well, it ended on Randy's terms.
and and I get it. Like he needed, like that's what was best for him at the time.
Yeah.
And
also, I'm so proud of him. Also,
exactly.
Like, good on him.
It sucked that it happened, but I'm not sad for him because it's what he needed to do. Now I will say I called it because when we were recording The Angel and the Marble, if you and Jay went down early, like on a Thursday, and me and Randy, I was waiting for him to get back from San Diego, and then we were going to drive down there.
Right.
So he was visiting someone, and he was talking about how awesome it was, and on the ride down there, I'm like, "You're going to fucking move down there, aren't you?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "I bet you are."
I like that he waited till we completed the album, and then was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna move down."
Yeah. I think if, like, obviously, I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks after the album came out that he decided to move, and that's when we kind of said, "All right, we're disbanding." Yeah. I think if it would have been out for some time, we would have gave it time to do something.
Marinate.
Yeah. I think I probably would have been in a better place about it, but to me, it's still like I wasn't ready to do it yet.
Yeah.
So
we just celebrated. What was it? Tuesday was 13 years since our last show.
Last show was the 29th, right?
26th.
26th?
Yeah, I only know because my mom's birthday is the 26th of September. 13 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long.
I can't either.
Like,
it doesn't seem that long.
Yeah, especially because I'm like, when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I've always made music at some point. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I haven't since my 20s.
Yeah. We smattered it in at like 32 and 35. And
yeah, we did it in the basement.
Yeah, we did the thing with me, you, Dave, and Jillian for a while.
Yeah.
And then we did really just me, you, and Dave.
Yeah, that's what we've been since.
Yeah. But man, those 5 songs.
Yeah, those 5 songs.
Yep.
Someday.
Yep.
There's a tidbit, too, that we always talk about that I love also is because you joined AP in 2008. No, 2007.
Yeah.
But our first show was January.
Correct.
2008. Yep. But before that, back in before you went to college? Before you went to SIU?
It was spring of 2002.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Jay and I started jamming when Three Creeks was still around. Because I had played with them once, and then they kept doing what they were doing, but Jay and I kept playing.
Yep.
And we just kept jamming. You came and jammed with us.
Yep.
In 2002, and it clicked then.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. Where we were like, oh, let's do this. And then
like,
I'm going to go to college instead. Yeah. And we're like, because even then we were like, well, when we get back from college, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, you guys had formed with Yunker.
Yes,
AP
we played
while
AP,
I was gone.
They played Popper with Yunker.
Yep.
Even then, like that, because our first album with AP, when Yunker was in the band, came out in 05. When we recorded with Andy and did all of that stuff. So even that took another 3 years, and then another 3 years or 2.5 years from there.
Yeah.
When you were finally done with everything you were doing.
Yep.
Which we just learned you were doing 1,000 things at once.
Yep. Well, so it's interesting because I came to see you guys while Yunker was in the band. What was the place up here in Yorkville? It was you guys and Blackout were playing.
Oh, the Big Easy.
The Big Easy, yeah, the Big Easy. So
Wait,
I came
really?
to see you guys.
I don't remember playing the Big Easy with Yunker.
It may have been the only time.
It had to be. You know, yeah. Well, it's also when the place was probably smaller because they expanded it later.
So I was talking to Adam. He's like, "Oh, we're playing at the Big Easy. Come check it out." And then you guys were opening for him.
Yeah.
So I ended up like catching you guys. I'm like, cool. And then obviously saw Blackout. And then it was like a couple months later that Yunker left.
Yeah.
And then you guys, I forget if you put it on like, was it MySpace at the time or whatever? Like you guys were looking for a guitar player.
Probably MySpace at the time.
Probably.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, fuck, I just don't have time. I'm doing all these
Which
things.
we just learned you legitimately didn't.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll come to that next. But it was actually Jessica who's like, no, you need to make time and do this. Like, I know you want to do it. Like, they're your people. Because, like, we'd been friends. Like,
sure.
I'm a monogamous jammer. I don't want to jam with strangers. Like, I want to jam with my people. Yeah. The same people all the time. Like, I'm not interested in jamming with
It's actually interesting you see that because, as you know, I'll jam with anybody I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
Just because I'm always going to get something out of it. Like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It always clicks better with you know, Jay and us and stuff like that because we're actually, you know, doing something we know each other. It's way better. But I always like the idea of kind of whoring around.
Yeah. So I like the intimacy of writing music.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that I could do that with someone that I only know through the context of, hey, I responded to your ad on Craigslist. You were looking for guitar player.
I did I've tried out for a ton of bands, and I agree. It never felt right. I do always feel like we were spoiled because we're already good friends.
Yeah.
Like, I remember back in high school, you'd come to my house and show me bass lines.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, I remember sitting in my room because, like, showing me Nirvana bass lines and stuff. Because I was trying to get better.
Yeah, because your brother's friend or something was like starting to teach you a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember playing, like, you wanted to learn a bunch of Rage songs.
Yeah.
I remember, like, trying to figure those out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, which is still what happens today when I'm like, hey, Guy, how do I play my part? And you're like, oh, it's like this.
But, yeah, like, the intimacy is what I like. And that's kind of what, like Jessica saw that I didn't. Like, I knew I wanted to jam with you guys because I saw you. I kind of liked the direction things could have gone. I'm like, I just don't have time. And she's like, you need to do it. You need to make time.
Yeah.
So that's when I messaged you guys. And I think we met at, like, Cheech's house because he used to live right down the street from me.
Yeah.
And we kind of jammed or talked.
I say we jammed there for a while. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Until you just said that.
Yeah.
That when he bought his house, we jammed in his basement.
And then you just had to move 8 houses down to my house.
Yeah, right down the street.
But I even remember, like, the first time we got together, I remember saying this to you guys, like, I'm kind of busy. I can't really commit to anything. But here's, like, once I get involved with something, I'm balls deep. Like, I'm in. Like, I don't want to half-ass anything. Again, I feel like my name's on it now. Right. So I wasn't, even though I told myself, because that's how I justified to myself that it was okay.
Right.
You know, this wasn't a major commitment. It was just for fun. Like, the second we struck a string together, I'm like, I'm in. Like, because I felt that chemistry, and I knew in my head what we could be and what we could do.
Yeah.
And that locked it in for me. And then that became almost my priority. Like, AP was, even though it was not the source of income that paid my bills, in my mind, it was the thing that I wanted to put the most time towards.
I think we were still young enough to where it was like, all right, let's give it a go. Like, like you were saying, like, everybody wants to be famous. And we were still young enough to believe in possibility.
That it was possible.
Yeah. Well, like, and I think that's true actually for any band that came out of Oswego.
Yeah.
Every single one of them was amazing for what they did.
Yep.
Realistically, our journey would have been the hardest because everybody else kind of had their little niche.
Yeah, we were kind of all over the place.
We're kind of like, when, you know, the old joke. Hey, what do you guys? What's your sound like? Like, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah. What do you like? It's that.
Yeah, like whatever. You'll find something in there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that was the one thing I loved about what we did is nothing was pigeonholed, nothing was off limits. Like all three of us had different, or four of us had different tastes. Mm-hmm. We all liked the same stuff. No one had a definitive direction that we had to go in. So like it was anything goes. Yeah. Like we brought to the table, everything got a chance. We tried to make things work.
I was always impressed how we could come with 4 very different ideas, 4 very different egos, and for them, like, it worked out. I feel like we just got lucky 30 times with all the songs we wrote.
The best 30 times ever. But no, you're 100% right. But I wouldn't say we got lucky. I think what happened is we fed off of each other, and we all appreciated everyone else's talent and ideas. Even if it wasn't the idea that worked, we all respected each other enough to say, let's try it. Yeah. And if it feels good, we'll keep going. And if it doesn't, we'll try something different. And I think that was the beauty of how we wrote music. Like, we didn't write it traditionally. Like, I remember when we were talking with Adam about joining me, you, and Dave. Yeah. And we handed him stuff. He's like, what do I even do with this?
Right. Well, because we had complete songs.
Yeah.
Like, we're handing them complete. Like, even when I think of, like, Walsh and Jason and Andy and Short of All, when they would, one of them would write a song and then basically present it to the rest. And like, here's the song. Yeah. Here's what you're going to do. And we're always like, here's this bass line. Good luck.
I feel like we probably just did things so backwards from what everyone else was doing. And I think that may have been the secret sauce to why our stuff always came out, I don't want to say weird, but nothing was always the same. Yeah. And no one could pigeonhole us into a style or anything.
Actually, oddly enough, I give Randy the most credit for our songs coming together in the end. Yeah. Because the way they were written was stupid.
they were stupid until he put his clouds over it, whatever he did. Like when you listen to our music, the instrumentals are like when we just used to record jamming. You're like, what the fuck is this?
And that's the thing. We wrote all of our songs. By the time Randy got them, they were written.
Yeah.
But
he was there while we were writing.
That's true.
I
And
think
we were
that's
always
key.
like, hey, man, let us know where you want, if you want to cut, move, or so it'll sound better for vocals. And he never did.
Yeah.
So he always managed to just plug in. He's like the Bob Ross of the band, which is just, I've always been impressed by that because I've always loved his lyrics also.
His lyrics were great. His delivery was great. His voice was great. He made us look like musicians, and I thank him for that.
That's probably true. I never thought of that,
Yeah.
but that's probably true that he would kind of pull it all, especially on stage, like he pulled it all together. We're like, oh, these guys are an actual band.
He was the
if
whole
you were in the
package.
basement, you'd be like, how are these guys? Wait, they're gonna put on a show in 2 hours?
No, he was definitely the spit shine on our stuff, and that's why I never felt comfortable moving on without him. Like when he decided that he was going to move, like carrying on and finding a different singer was never even an option.
I think it was always whatever. Even when Jay was not gonna leave yet, it was like, well, this is a different band than if Randy's gone. Like you said too, like I said before, we were just spoiled because we'd already been close friends for so long.
Yeah.
You know what really messes me up now is to think that because you started in 2008 in January, and then literally only 2 years we played.
It was almost 3.
Almost.
It was almost 3.
It was September of 2010.
Yeah.
But still, I'm like, it had to be longer than that because we did so much in a really short time.
We did a lot. We did a lot of shows.
Correct,
2 albums.
Yeah.
I mean, and even if you think of just like when I came into the band, like at that point you had the Orange album songs that we wanted to like kind of tweak a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know that we saved any of those. There was other songs we had written with Junker that we basically restructured and tweaked.
Yeah, there were some
But
parts.
I don't think we really did anything from the Orange album.
We didn't do anything with them on albums, but like for live shows.
Oh,
we changed some parts.
I guess when we first started,
Yeah,
because we didn't have other
anything.
songs. Yeah.
But I feel like putting that like a different twist on it. Not that I was trying to take away from what Junker did.
Yeah.
But like I was a very different guitar player than him.
Right.
And I wanted, like, I didn't want to like have a show and everyone like show up and be like, oh, this is the new Junker. Like I wanted it to be like, this is almost a different band now.
Yeah.
Because we're two
I
very
think it
different
sounded
bands.
very different.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I love Junker to death. He's by far one of the most talented. He's also an actual musician.
Also true.
Yeah. He's one of the most talented and beautiful men I've ever seen in my life.
Very beautiful.
But even he was excited because he was at that first show.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were done, he even pulled me aside. I was like, you guys actually sound like you've always supposed to sound. Like, this is what you guys should have been from the beginning.
That makes me super happy to hear that because I never wanted it to be like a contentious thing like oh, I should be up there or anything. You know, like
no, never.
And that was my
Never.
biggest worry. Like when I joined, and I know you guys. I don't know if you remember this, but I wanted to change the name of the band. Like I didn't want it to be absolutely.
Jay
perfect.
and I came up with the name before we were anything but
Correct.
him and I, and nobody liked it ever.
Well, it's not that I didn't like it. Is I didn't want people to come and expect what they knew.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest thing of wanting to change the name because it was a different band.
I think honestly, I think if I don't regret anything whatsoever. I've loved every piece of the journey. Mm-hmm. But if I could go back, I probably would change the name.
Yeah.
When you joined, I think that would have made, because it's not like we really had anything outside of our town anyways to lose. So everybody would just be like, oh yeah, it's the same dickheads, just guy joined.
Every other band changed their name. Why can't we?
Yeah. What would you have named the band?
I have no idea. I'm an ideas guy, Tim. I came up with the idea of changing it. I would leave it to you guys.
I don't have your answers. I have your ideas.
That's right. I don't know. And it wasn't even the name. It was the idea. Like, it was something different, so I wanted it to be something different. Because, like, with me, you, and Dave doing what we're doing now, I mean, Dave is really the unofficial 5th member of AP, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to call us AP.
Right.
Even if the songs we're playing are similar, because if me and you are writing something, it's going to sound very similar. You know?
Well, yeah, I think you and I are the sound of AP.
Yeah.
Where it's just that overload droning bass and just the screeching guitar style you play. It's like, this is definitely an AP song.
It's a good thing we had Jay and Randy to clean up our shit, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Man, I do miss those days. There were a lot of great memories, a lot of good times with a lot of good people. Like, one day, if everyone happens to be in the area at the same time, I'd like to do a reunion show, even if it's just in my basement with just us 5. Like, we don't even need to play
cool
for
to just
people,
jam.
like, just to jam.
I know
like,
Dave's pushing for us to play his daughter's Sweet 16.
Yeah, apparently we're huge
In
at some junior high.
her junior high. Yeah.
Like, we're huge in Japan and in a junior high.
That's what always makes me laugh is to, like, you know, because you don't know what's going to happen. And we do have our last album on streaming.
Yep.
And I always am like, when are we going to get the email that's like, hey, you guys made like $100
Yeah.
just in streaming royalties. And everybody's demanding to see it. And I'm like, oh, well, too bad.
Remember, I think it was the skate video. There were, like, all the people in South America, like, wanting us to come down there and tour. We're like,
Oh, yeah.
dude, we can't even fill up a place 10
Yeah.
minutes from our house. We're not driving down to South America.
Yeah,
or flying down to South
North
America.
Beach is stoked 30 people came to see us.
That's right.
Yeah, that was fun, though. I always forget we did the BMX video.
Yep. Yeah.
We did a political cartoon also.
I don't remember that.
Oh, you know, that might have been before because that was from a song from the Orange album.
Oh, okay.
This guy was like, hey, I want to use Ghetto Fabulous. Was that the name of it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's like, I want to use that for this political cartoon. And we're like, cool. He wanted to change some things. Hey, we'll have to go back into the studio to change it, even though we just had Andy just recut it. And he's like, it's going to be $1,200 to go back in the studio. And he gave us $1,200.
Nice.
And we gave him a single-use rights to use the song.
Nice.
And then we never saw it, and nothing ever happened with it.
I do remember one of our songs from The Angel being on one of the wrestling shows, Ring of Honor.
Is that true?
Yes, there was a YouTube clip of it.
No.
Yes.
What?
It's
Hold
you
on.
could
How
hear
the
it playing.
fuck did I miss? I
Ask Jay.
love wrestling.
Guarantee you, Jay has the link of
Jay-
it still.
Oh, I'm gonna yell at him now on this episode.
I'm pretty
but I'm
sure-
gonna text him right after.
He'll be listening. He'll be like, "Are you going to yell at me again? That was 3 months ago." But I think it was Infectious was playing in the like the music for it.
Yeah.
And I thought I remember like a little thing coming up at the bottom, saying the name of the song and the artist.
Wow. I hope that's true.
Maybe this was a dream.
Yeah.
But I feel
I
like.
like that you're dreaming about wrestling.
No, it's not the wrestling. That's yours and Jay's thing. But I could swear I remember it being on Ring of Honor. And maybe Jordan was the guy who found it and like sent it to him. You remember Jordan Cook?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One
'cause-
of our oldest fans.
Yeah, Jordan, one of our youngest fans.
Oldest fans.
Jordan he was training actually, so
Yeah.
he knew a lot of those guys. That would make more sense.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I just remember someone sending me a link and me adding it to my favorites so I wouldn't lose it.
Yeah.
Because I'm terrible at interneting.
Right.
And I probably still have it. I'm you know what? Tonight I'm gonna look for that and I'll send it to you.
Please do, because I would love to see my music in a wrestling capacity.
You
I
made
can't believe I missed that.
I swear it's there.
This changes everything.
Yeah. So, no, it was a lot of good times. I
Yeah,
miss
it
that
was
time.
a lot of good times. How was it different though? Like being your first band was Noozle, because you guys recorded an album, Hung Like a Horse.
Yep.
Would you just write that off as just it was high school, we're just having fun, or was it like at the time where you're like, I could take this, like kind of like what we thought of AP?
Yeah.
Like I can take this if I hit it hard.
So it started as being like just a high school fun thing, not really know what we were doing. And I'd say that changed after high school graduation when we started branching out. So we had a lineup change. We switched bass players.
I did not get the job,
You did not.
even though I pined for it.
Did you? I don't even remember.
I don't even remember you guys changing bass players. But if there was a bass player hole in Oswego, I was trying to fill it.
Just trying to stick it in.
Yeah.
So we changed, and at that point, like we were a little bit older, and I don't want to say wiser because we're out of high school, but
Yeah.
like you step out of your comfort zone.
Right. Well, plus
So-
me and Matt always dreamed of being in a band together.
Also
back
true.
then.
Yeah.
For who don't credit.
Amazing drummer though.
Yeah, amazing drummer.
Like, so we started like trying to get shows outside of the Oswego area.
Yeah.
Like we started going to the city and going to like actual clubs. So I remember like I would just get the Illinois Entertainer,
Yeah.
and I would call up every single place in there once a week. Hey, we want to play there. Some of them would just hang up on you. Some would say, not till they're 21.
Yeah.
But some places started letting us play, and we started playing, and that's when we said, all right, we need to do an album. because if we're going to do something serious, we can't use the 4-track recorder in Matt's basement and make some shitty-ass demo tape.
Right.
So we recorded, I think it was a 4 or 5-song album with a guy in Naperville who was in the local music scene, and he was like trying his hand at recording.
Yeah.
And I've lost touch with him. I don't know what he's up to now, but at the time, like, he was recording some good stuff. Like, I remember listening to a bunch of different studios, like actual studios, and then listening to stuff that he recorded in his basement, and it sounded bigger and better in like a big budget release over like all the little, Chicago area studios.
Yeah.
So, and his price wasn't bad either, so we couldn't argue with that. So we recorded an album with him, which the quality of it came out good. The songs were shit. Like, we weren't good.
Right.
But
you also sang for that band.
I did, and that's part of why I wasn't good. But like, that was kind of like my first taste, and where I really started to tie my pride thing that I have with everything. Like, if I'm going to put something out and I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it all the way, and I'm going to do it the best that I can. It may not be good, but I'm going to do the best that I can.
I feel like music particularly is a really easy thing to do that with.
Yeah.
Because you know what it sounds like dog shit immediately.
Yep.
And you're like, I can't stand this. There's no way I'm releasing this.
How can I expect other people to like it?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's tough. To whereas I feel like in the past, it might have sounded bad, but it was as good as you were going to get for that level.
Yeah.
It's whereas now, then and now is like, all right, we can do better. We can play better. This can be mixed better. Like this has, because the equipment matters less once you're recording.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of this stuff post production where it's like, all right, you have to playability, tighten it up. All right, make it sound. All right, now do magic. Make it better.
Here, Dave, make us sound like we're talented.
yeah. Or Eric.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah. Man, that is got to be the most talented human being I've ever met in my life. Is Eric.
Definitely, I can't sit here and think of somebody more talented, especially to watch him work. Like, I know Dave and I talked about this too, when we would like record a song, and then he would just be like, "Oh, this would sound cool with like this piano riff." And we're like, "Yeah, but who's gonna play piano?" And he just goes,
The funny thing is, he wouldn't even practice it. He just hit record and do it.
Yeah, he literally was just like, hits record, and it's like maybe something like, and we're like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard."
It's a shame we got to pair it with this shitty song we just recorded.
Yeah, I think you just created a whole new thing.
Yeah. No, that guy was awesome. Like, that was such a great experience. Like,
yeah, I would love to get down there again. I'm hoping that if we ever get to find time for me and Dave to get back together, and I would love to record the stuff we have.
Yeah. Like proper recordings, not the basement recordings we got.
Proper recording, like, and just drill it like we did for the last album. Just drill everything, so we can go down there and knock it out pretty quick.
Let's do that and send it to Randy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to find another vocalist. Around here that's at the same level.
Well, but also that we have the connection with.
Well, like, chemistry and stuff like that.
That's the hardest thing, is trying to find someone. Like, I would almost do something with someone that I have chemistry with over their talent. Like, I would accept a lesser quality singer because I have the connection to him then.
I do also feel, though, like there's people that we do know that we have, or at least are friends with, that would love to try their hand at singing that never have.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like just being, intimidated or stage fright or whatever. And I feel like with the project that we're talking about, it's not necessarily playing on stage at this point.
Yeah.
Like, this is your best opportunity to kind of take your hand at it.
I feel like that's an awesome idea. Where I think it becomes hairy is, all right, you audition them and they don't make it, and now we're like, no. Or like, that's always a hard thing too, is like if we're friends with these people, which is hard because that's the only people we want to jam with.
Right.
But you got to be perfect for it. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to create a situation either where we have to say no to someone and make them feel bad.
Yeah.
Or like they missed out or they weren't good enough. And it's not that you weren't good enough, it's maybe you just didn't mesh with us.
Well, and I think that's where it becomes not hard, is that if it works out or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, we know that feeling that musicians get, I presume all musicians get, when something clicks, like, it just clicks.
Yeah.
And like, you get like goosebumps because you're like, oh, everything is locked in. Like when like when we're jamming, and it might just be because we're jam musicians. Like when we're transitioning together, but we've never talked about this. This is the thing we just came up with randomly. But we're transitioning, not only transitioning, but we're staying in the same key and on the same note, or moving to progression at the same time. It's almost like you're sharing a brain at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's like outside of my little bass window. I don't know if a singer feels that because it's such a different way of writing and a different way of performing.
Well, and I feel like that's why I'm not open to jamming with strangers, because I feel like the connection that we have as friends and as people is what allows us to think together like that. Like, I never once had to look over and shake my head at Jay to change,
right.
or you, like, we all just felt it and it happened.
Well, us three also play with our eyes closed.
Also true.
We're usually lost in some trance.
But I think that's just the power of making that connection with people. And I think ultimately that's what I miss the most, is not just making the music, but making the music in a connected way.
Yeah.
Like, I can go down in my basement and jam all day long by myself, but it's not the same, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's how I feel too. I wish I did, just because I wish I stayed in practice.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's still not fun.
Yeah, if I had a regular, like, hey, we're all going to get together and jam and do this, I would practice more because I was practicing towards something.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Do you think you'll stay in this area, though?
I think so, at least till my kids graduate and decide what they are doing with their lives. You know, when I retire, I'll probably at least maybe have two places, like up here, and then I'll be like those people who migrate south for the winter or something.
And you'll probably be able to do it too.
I'm hoping.
Will you be able to retire unless the world's going to change between now and then, and the government's going to do everything they can to make it not happen. But do you think 65, or would you be able to retire earlier?
Way earlier. So
really, way earlier.
So in the teaching world, you have to have a certain number of years in.
That's what I was wondering, because since you kind of hit it hard early, much earlier than most people would, that gets to pay off at the end.
Yeah. So obviously, the longer you stay, the more money you make, like in your pension and all that stuff.
Do you get to save? Is there a thing? I feel like maybe I'm misremembering, but can't you save like your vacation
sick days
and put them and start throwing them into your retirement?
You can, but only up to a certain amount.
Oh, okay.
So like in the program that I'm in teaching at the college, I could cash in, I think it's 180 sick days for a year.
But you're talking about 20 years worth of having sick days.
Yeah, I think I get 12 a year.
Yeah.
If I've used a sick day twice in my entire 20 years teaching.
But that's 12 times 20.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, like, you're talking years earlier.
So I'll have more than, like, I'm going to lose a bunch. So I can only cash in 1 year. So if I do the minimum, so I have to have 30 years in, which I'll have at 52. And then if I cash in 1 year, I technically can retire at 51.
Wow.
I'm probably not going to. I'm still young. I enjoy what I do. There's no reason to. But remember, like I said, like the day I don't enjoy this anymore, it's done.
Yeah.
If there comes a day after I'm 51 where I'm like, I don't enjoy what I'm doing, or I'm not benefiting other people by doing what I'm doing, I'm out. Yeah. Like, we've all had that teacher who is old as dirt, and you're like, man, this asshole should have retired 20 years ago. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy.
Sure.
So the first time I become ineffective or I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, I'll retire that day, and then I'll find something else to do.
Do you think there's something to, like, even if you go to 55 in this day and age, like, that's still young enough to still enjoy a good 10 to 20 years of your life?
I hope it's more than 10 or 20.
Well, for sure, but like at least.
Yeah.
As long as, I know you're in good health. I know your wife has a lot to do with that also.
Yes.
Because she's incredible. And then still just like doing stuff on the side. Like this you'll probably do until you're dead. Or until you can't.
Yeah. So this is actually my retirement plan. Because I can't sit still. I can't not do anything.
You don't say.
Yeah. So I think like when I retire, I'll probably just do like project cars for people. Because I enjoy doing it. And the project cars are not anything that have a deadline.
Right.
Like, no one's like, oh, I need you to finish this by tomorrow so I can get to work. It's like, here's an insane amount of money. Here's what I want. Yeah. Call me when it's done. Right. So, if one day I come down, have my cup of coffee, I'm like, I got a case of the Fuckets today. I don't want to go out in the garage and work. I can do that, you know? So I think I'll always do this to some degree. Just.
Do you think you'll ever, we talked before we went live about, like, you not having the money to build your own dream car or your own whatever you'd want? Do you think one day you'd want to for yourself?
I don't know, because I used to have some cars that I sold off.
Because you get a lot of satisfaction building, like you said, you get to drive these and test them all out anyways.
Yeah.
So you're kind of scratching that itch pretty well.
So that's the itch that I have. So all the cars of mine that I did and built, like I built it and I drove it for a month or two, and then it just sat in my garage. Like I like the build, I like the process, all that. Like the actual driving of it, like once it's done, it's like, all right, it's done. Like, what am I doing next?
Right.
And part of that could have been because, when I was doing that, I was in my 20s. I didn't have the money, the disposable income to build what I want. Yeah. Especially when I'm building someone's $150,000 car, and now I'm like, oh, I could spend $2,000 on mine. It's not fun anymore. Yeah. So maybe one day I might do that just so I have something. But the build, it's like I like the journey, not the destination. Yeah. So I think I'll probably always do this, and maybe I'll have something for fun. But
I think you just explained why it's still such a strong passion.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, the gratification is the end, but just like life, the journey part is the living part.
Absolutely.
That's where it's at.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why I might not like a car, because like if I have my own car and I build it and it's done, then I'm like, now what?
You're right.
Now I'm sitting. Yeah. But I also know what an insane waste of money these things are. like the guy that I'm building this car for, I told him, I said, just so you know, you're not even going to be able to sell this car for a quarter of what you're putting into it, because it's not worth it. Yeah.
So we were just talking about 1984 Camaro is probably a couple $1,000s maybe.
Yeah.
And there's $43,000 worth of parts and labor going into it.
So for him, and he said, he's like, I don't care what it's worth. He's like, it's a sentimental value.
I do love that, because he's probably gonna keep it. Maybe one day it'll go to whatever. It'll stay in the family.
Yep, it'll pass down.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
and it's gonna look sick.
Yeah,
so that's cool. But yeah, I couldn't imagine having that kind of money in the first place to just look at and be like, I don't need this money.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, realistically, think about what a new car costs. Like if he went and bought a Honda Odyssey minivan. That's $50,000. So he's instead of going to buy a minivan, he's just fixing up this old car that he's got. The function's different, but it's all like what makes you happy. If spending your money here makes you happy, then do it. Don't worry about what other people think. Like if something makes you happy,
that's one of those things too, where it's like it's easy to be like, you busted your ass to have this disposable income, man. Yep. Like you said, if it's gonna put a smile on your face. Awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
If you have the means to do it and it's what you want, like I hate when people judge other people's choices. Yeah. If it's what they want. Right. If they're making a bad choice that's going to negatively impact them or someone else. Sure. I could sometimes understand having a different view of it, but just so it's not something you like or you would do doesn't mean it's not making someone else happy. Yeah, and that's true. Like I mean, I'm all for taking the piss here and there. But it's different to I don't want to shit on anybody's thing. If it's if you're getting some out of it, awesome, do it. For sure. I do a ton of dumb stuff. Well, even cars. There's some cars that I build for people that I'm like, this is the fucking stupidest car in the world. Why would you put this money into it? But it's what they want. Just last weekend, I got a text from a woman who I built a car for her husband a couple years ago, and he just recently died. Yeah. And she was texting me to tell me, what happened and everything. And she's like, but he loved driving the truck. Yeah. Like, I thought it was the stupidest car in the world. Like, I would have never put a dime into that thing, but it's what he liked. Sure. And I made his dream come true, and he enjoyed it till he died. Like, that's awesome, Do
you feel the empathy of that?
Absolutely.
Like even with this, just knowing, because that it was his grandma's, and, he ended up with it after she was gone. Yeah. You've already got your own work ethic, but it adds a lot more. Where you're like, all right, I'm already gonna make this awesome, but God damn it, this means something.
Yeah. So I do have those feelings for those cars and for what it does for people. But to the flip side of that, I built a car for a guy one time, and he was obviously people make their own choices, but he was doing stupid stuff and he was street racing in it, and he died. He got into an accident racing it, and he died. And it's like when it happened, I felt like a little bit of responsibility because I made this jet strapped to a roller skate that he killed himself in. Like, had I not built the car to have as much power as it did, and again, it's what he wanted. I've made a dream
come true. That's a really hard line to walk.
It's super difficult. Like I tried not to take it
Personally.
internally and personally because he made the decision. He made all sorts of bad decisions that resulted in that.
But did he tell you beforehand? It was like, I want you to build this because I'm going to race it.
Well, so I built some other cars for him before, and he was just an automotive enthusiast.
Yeah. Oh, so you didn't have
all
any
his
thought
cars
about
were
it.
all his cars were fast, and I can't be responsible for what people do.
No,
It's
of
like,
course not.
Like the guy at Walmart who sells a shotgun to someone, he can't be responsible what that person does with that shotgun, right?
Right, yeah.
So, but there is a little bit of like, man, he died in that car that I built, like, and it's not my fault, but you just feel some emotion tied to that because you're emotionally connected to that project.
Yep,
and then the person, like, these are all people I know.
Sure.
You know?
Well, it's got to be tough in general because at the end of the day, there's no reason whatsoever for a car to have 1,000 horsepower.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Like, is
But
it awesome? Yes.
I love doing it to say that I could do it.
Well, sure,
You know?
exactly.
And people like doing it to say they have it.
Right.
Like 99% of those people hit the pedal once, get scared shitless, and that's it.
Right.
You
But
know?
that's the human spirit is I did it because I figured it out.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah. So that's always a difficult thing, and that's been the only real negative one. I mean, obviously, people I've done cars for, they get tickets and they do all this stupid
Sure,
shit, but
yeah.
that's the only one that I know of that's resulted in a death.
Yeah.
But all the rest of them, you hear all these stories about how people love them, how they're so happy with them, or they bring them to all these car shows and they win all these awards, and like, I like doing that for people. Like, it's nice to know that something I did other people appreciate, but to know that those people are happy with it, like,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like this car, I like old Camaros.
Yeah.
I would never do that to that Camaro, but it's what he wants,
Right.
and he's the one who's going to have the enjoyment from it, the pride. So that's what I like doing.
Now, and you're an American muscle car guy. You would consider yourself.
I am. That's what I like and what I do, but
Yeah.
I touch everything. Like there's this car from
Have you ever built something and not American muscle car?
I have.
Really?
So there's a picture of a car right over there on the other side of that cabinet. It's a car from Czechoslovakia. It's the 1960 Czechoslovakian. The car brand is called Skoda, and the name of the car is a Felicia. It's this little tiny. It looks like a fucking go-kart.
Yeah.
Like the thing that like Mr. Bean used to drive around in. Looks like one of those.
Nice.
And there's a guy here in Yorkville who came over from Czechoslovakia a number of years ago, and he brought this car, had it, from Czechoslovakia. There's only 7 of them in the United States.
Wow.
He owns 2 of them. So
Wow.
I did the one car, and the other one he owns is a parts car because we can't get parts for it. So I take parts off that car,
Right.
I redo them, and try and make one good car out of the 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, the car's amazing. Every car show he enters it in, it wins all sorts
Do you
of
feel
trophies and
that's
stuff.
got to be a whole different level of pride too?
Oh, sure.
There's only 6 of these really, because one's just a parts car
Yeah.
that he owns. 6 of these in this whole country, and you built it.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And the crazy thing is like he'd been in the country for many years. He searched far and wide for anyone who would even work on the car. No one would touch it because they didn't know what it was. They can't get parts for it. So it actually happened over COVID. He texted me, and he's like, "Hey, I got this car that no one will work on. Will you work on it?" And I work on anything usually, and I'm stupid. Like before I even say anything, I'm like, "Yeah, it's a car. Why not? Yeah, I'll work on it." And then he brings it over here, and I'm like, "What the fuck did I just get myself into?" So then I start researching, and I found this place in Czechoslovakia that I can get most parts for.
Right.
So he goes to Czechoslovakia every September to visit family. So he goes there with empty suitcases,
Grabs the parts.
loads all the parts. I can send him with a list, and then he comes back, and then I work on it. So he actually just got back a couple days ago. He texted me this morning, "Hey, one guy bring the car over."
That's kind of
So,
awesome.
but it's a cool car. Like everyone in the car circuit around here knows his car from car shows.
Yeah.
And that stuff's cool.
Are you
know?
involved in the circuit?
I try not to be.
Right.
I hate going to car shows.
Sure.
I hate when I go to like a party or something, all everyone wants to do is talk about cars all day long.
Yeah.
Which I get it. Like something you're interested in, but it's like I do this 28 hours a day.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend the time that I've carved out to not do it
Right.
talking about it. But
That is tough because I feel like it's an immediate bond, right?
of course, and that's why I engage in it, because that eventually leads to the other things.
Yeah.
And the deeper conversation or the
Right.
better, formation of relationships. Like I've made a lot of good friends strictly through cars.
Yeah.
It started as that, but then it evolves into something else.
An actual friendship.
Yeah,
It's
so-
nice to have that gate. Like it's a nice gateway. That's your way in.
Yep.
Like because you have a reputation and a name. People know Guy Tiberio because everybody takes advantage of him as much as possible.
Well, and I don't mind that. But I do like what it's been able to do for me in terms of connections with people and being a part of other people's story. You know, whether it's a small part, whether or not they even say that it's me, I don't care if other people know. But like to know, like, hey, this person is driving a safer car because of me, or they have this car that they've always wanted because of me. Like I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an awesome thing too. Like even when somebody is like, you know, because it's so stressful. Something happened to my car. It's going to be this amount of money, and it's like, hey man, like, talk to my friend Guy. Talk to him about what happened and see what he tells you.
Yeah.
At least do that, and if he can help you, because there is stuff you're not going to do here.
Some of it, yeah.
Like I can't imagine you're going to rebuild a transmission for somebody.
So actually rebuilding a transmission is the only thing I have not done in this garage.
Is
I've
that
rebuilt
true?
engines, differentials, built all cars from scratch. Transmissions are something I usually don't like to get involved in because they're very intricate and require a lot of specialty tools.
Right.
And a lot of those transmissions are things I do once. So I don't want to spend $1,000 on all these specialty tools that I'll never use again.
Yeah. And do you think too, as far as depending on the level of work, getting a transmission done, I know it's very expensive to replace, but it might be worth it to replace?
In most situations.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times, like, I have a network of people that I work with, too.
Sure.
So I have a guy for at least most of the cars I work on that he specializes in those transmissions. So I'll bring the car here, I'll pull the trans out, and then I'll send it to him.
Yeah.
And then he'll build it, then I take it back, I put it back in the car and get it running. Because that's all he does all day long is transmissions. Like, I can't be the expert at everything.
Right.
You know, there's some things where I have to say, all right, this is out of my skill set.
Right.
But because I want to deliver a premium product, I need to rely on some other people.
Sure.
You know?
Have you ever taken on a project that you had to quit or couldn't finish?
I have not, and that is because of my stubbornness. my stubbornness is a good and a bad thing.
So you definitely had a bitchy job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna finish you.
That Czechoslovakian car was one of them.
Really?
Because, like, I didn't enjoy working on a lot of it.
Yeah.
And some of it, like, the way they did things was just so backwards, and then I can't get parts for it, so I'm having to make a bunch of parts or reconfigure the parts that are on there.
Yeah.
And there were times when, like, fuck, what do I even do here? Like,
Right.
this part's broken. I can't get a new one. I have to figure out something to do it. And eventually you do,
Sure.
you know.
But is there a point that it becomes, because it's such a custom job, and if you've been fabricating parts, where's the line where it's like, it's not even, other than the body, it's not even this car anymore?
Yeah. The problem is I blur that line too much.
Yeah.
Because
nobody's really looking at the guts.
Yeah.
They're looking under the hood and at the body, right?
Yep. That's exactly what it is. So I have to find ways to hide that line because it's there.
Yeah.
But no one knows it but me, and maybe the person who owns the car if I'm nice enough to tell them about it.
Right.
So, but what I do is every car I build, I fully document, like, pictures of everything.
Yeah.
I save all the part numbers, so if 2 months from now the car breaks or 3 years from now it breaks, I can go back and say, oh, this is what I did.
Yeah.
Or this was the part that I used, so I can get another one.
Do you really are you that meticulous about, like, that's really smart.
Every car I have, I build a file for every car, and there's 800-900 pictures of that car. So almost everything I do, I take pictures. And then at the end, I put them all on a DVR, and I give it to the person who owns it. Like, so they could see what they paid for, right? See where all their money went. But
Do
also,
people still have DVD players?
I don't know. I don't ask those questions. I just give it to them. What you do with it's your business. So, in fairness, most of the people that I do these cars for are older. I don't want to say older, but they're our age or older.
Sure.
Because realistically, someone who's 20 probably doesn't have the disposable income to do these things.
Right, that's true.
So they still do have CD players or DVD players and all that stuff. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try and document everything really just to make my life easier down the road, because there's times where stuff breaks or car gets hit, whatever happens, and then I have to go back. I don't want to have to re-engineer it a second time.
Right.
It's like I've already invented the wheel. Let's just get a new wheel.
Yeah, that's so smart. Like, especially because a lot of the stuff you work on more than once, being able to just go back and be like, boom, nice and simple, already done.
Well, and the thing is, I work on so many cars, I don't remember what I did on other cars.
Right.
So, like, I do a lot of Camaros, Corvettes. That's kind of what I specialize in. So when someone calls me up and says, hey, I want to do this to a Camaro, I'm like, wait a second, I've done a car like that. Let me go back. So I'll pull up my spreadsheet with the parts that I use, like all that stuff. So now I already have a baseline.
Yeah.
So I'm not constantly starting over.
Yeah, that's smart. That's cool.
But these are all just hard lessons I've learned along the way.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's nice to learn and adapt.
Yeah.
Instead of just keep getting punched in the face and be like, God damn it.
Yep. So my biggest struggle is figuring out how to properly charge people.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that I do that I don't feel comfortable charging them.
Really?
Or the amount of time that I put in something. Like,
Yeah.
someone doesn't understand the time that it takes to do this.
Sure.
But then, like, I look at the bill, I'm like, oh, shit, that's a ton of money. I can't charge someone that much money. So then I
Right.
end up fucking myself because
Yeah.
I feel guilty. But then, in the end, it's like, well, wait a second. If they
Your
brought
time's
this
still
somewhere else,
valuable, yeah.
well, my time's valuable, but if they went somewhere else, they would get paid or charged for every second, and
Right.
it would be more than this because
Yeah.
their hourly rate's more.
Sure.
And then I have not seen this, but like other people, one of my friends, my buddy Chris, who I work on all his cars, he's the guy who's actually like always on me like, dude, you need to raise your labor rate. You need to do this. Like, your skill is worth more. But
Yeah.
I'm like, well, but I feel like it's fair. Like, people are getting a good deal.
Right.
It's worth my time to me.
Yeah. Well, it's also one of those two things too, where what are you looking to get out of it?
Yeah.
Versus the amount of time you're putting into
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Like, could you make double what you're making? Sure. But
do I need to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and that kind of, I'm curious too to see how that goes with as you come to that point where it's like it's not as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Do the prices start going up? But I don't think for a second that your enjoyment is tied to money.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's tied to the process. The money just makes it easier to justify the time that I have to spend in here
Right.
away from the family. Or
Right, which I think
You know.
is a sad reality.
Yeah.
To put a dollar amount on time away from the family.
Yeah. Well, and I ultimately, a couple years ago, raised my price a little, and I'm still way lower than everyone
Sure,
else. But
sure.
that's why I did it. I'm like, if I'm taking this time away from the family, I have to make sure that financially it's worth it, or it's allowing me to do something else with it that's going to benefit them.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? So that's always like the middle ground. Like, I don't want to ever do anything that puts my kids or my wife or my family at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
Especially not for someone else who maybe I'm not as close to
Right.
their benefit.
Sure.
Like, this guy that I'm building this car for, super nice guy. I don't hang out with him every night. Like,
Sure.
we're not family friends. Like, I don't want to give him a discount and end up screwing over my kids, or
Right.
like that's always the delicate balance of trying to
Yeah.
find that number.
Have you gotten to, like we talked earlier about you kind of coming up with your pops
Mm-hmm.
and learning the stuff. Do you get the girls out here?
They do, yeah.
You do have two girls.
Two girls, yep.
How old are they now?
Alana is 9 and Gianna is 12.
Okay.
So,
Oh, I
yeah.
thought they were only 2 years apart. It's like 2.5, 3.
Yeah, it's like 2.5.
Yeah. So do they come out here though and start getting a basic understanding, or are
Yep.
they not interested?
No, they are. They like hanging out here, seeing what's going on. They
Because I
ask
think
questions.
that's cool where you're kind of getting that kickback of like, yes, you're still getting paid, and it's technically time away with the family with the family.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I do it here, because a lot of times they'll be here, sitting on the driveway chalking or something. I'm
Yeah.
in here, like, we're still able to talk, like we're
Yeah.
together.
One of them was just riding her bike earlier.
Yeah. And like, they love like bleeding brakes. Like,
Really?
'cause I need someone inside to push the pedals. I'm like, hey,
Oh,
I'll
so
see
they
you
get to
outside.
get in the car. Yeah.
Hey, I need someone to bleed the brakes, and they'll both come running. Oh, I want to do it. I want to do it. So like, it's awesome, and like sometimes I'll let them take the wheels off with the impact gun, and
Yeah.
my younger one, Alana, she like loves like doing mechanical things. So like, I'm finishing the basement.
Yeah.
I give her a couple boards that I've cut up and nails, and she'll sit down there and pound nails and build stuff, like little crafty type stuff. But like,
Yeah.
she loves doing it. But I think it's because she sees me doing it,
Right.
and then is like, oh, that looks cool. I want to give that a shot too.
Well, I
Like,
think
I'm
that's
not forcing him to
right.
do it.
That's the beauty of it is, hey, Dad does this.
Yeah.
2 things. It looks awesome, and I want to hang out with pops.
Yep.
Like, and then also they're gonna grow up. They're gonna be able to do normal maintenance on their cars.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna be awesome at being able to remodel their house.
I hope so, because I don't know. I've seen a lot of the boys that are out there today, and I don't know that there's as many of them that have the skills to do that kind of stuff.
Bruh, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Like, but I'll try stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've done more on my car than I should, but I'm always one YouTube video away from being really good at something.
But I think you also have enough knowledge to look at something and be like, that's too much.
Yeah, for sure.
It's time to call in the professionals,
Absolutely, yeah,
So,
definitely.
but-
On 20 years, I'll be calling your daughters and
Yep.
be like, my car, I don't know.
Like, my younger one asks all the time, like, when I get in college, could I take your classes? I'm like, absolutely. Like, why not? But I'll just teach you in the garage. So, and I don't know, like, they're kids. They're curious and interested in all sorts of things. So,
Sure.
like,
And that's going to evolve and stuff.
yeah,
too,
but I like always try and foster that. Like, hey, you want to do this? Look into it. See what it takes to do that, or see what that every day looks like.
Well, because they were always interested too when we would jam in the basement. They would always hang out.
Yeah.
And wanted, and didn't they sing one of our songs?
My older daughter, yeah.
That's right.
So she's like a phenomenal singer. Like she's like in a choir at school, and she like gets all these like solos and everything all the time. Like she's really good.
Sounds like we just solved our earlier problem.
Well, I think we just did. Sometimes you just got to look inside.
There you go.
Yeah. So like she's really into music. Like they both love listening to music. Like there's always 3 or 4 different musics playing in our house. And sometimes it's frustrating. It's like I can't hear one. Like let's pick one and listen to one. Not, you have your thing going. You have your thing going. But they're very music based. Like whenever we're in the car, it's always like, hey, let's turn on Non-Point or like something. You know, like there's very little Taylor Swifting going on around here. So like, hey, let's listen to Dredge today. All right, let's do it.
That's impressive, really.
So, but it's because they've just grown up listening to it.
Yeah, but it's even still that stereotypical societal stuff you pick up from school.
Yeah.
And you kind of bring it home. But I like to think that they hear it and they're like, ugh. Let me tell you about something else.
So they used to, but I can see it starting to infiltrate slowly. So, but
that's funny.
Yeah.
So what do you think is next?
Man, I don't know. Like I really love where I'm at in life.
Yeah, you can be content.
Yeah.
I feel like you've always got an idea of where you're headed, but like this is probably the best point in your life to just be like, not coast. Like I mean that's just
sit
sound
and
negative.
enjoy it for a while.
Exactly. Like I've busted my dick for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And now I can enjoy this while still busting my dick.
Yeah, I think really the thing that's next and what I'm really working on is trying to be mindful that I have maybe 10 years left with my kids before they scatter and do their thing. Like making the time to be there, being present, like interacting with them. Like
and they're coming to the age now too, as they hit middle school and stuff too, where they're gonna start pulling away.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And then
So we're lucky enough in the fact that they do not have any cell phones or connection to the outside world aside from going to school.
Right.
So we still have them there. Like we still spend time together because of that. You know. But like you said, it's going to happen soon. Like you can only. I don't want to say keep them prisoner because we're not keeping them prisoner, but like they're starting to grow up and starting to develop their friend group and spend more time with their friends.
But that's realistic. It's one of those double-edged swords, right? Because it's a testament to how great you've been as parents.
Yeah.
But it also hurts.
Oh yeah.
Because they don't want anything to do with you anymore.
Yeah. So we haven't got to the point where they don't want to do anything with us yet, but we see it on the horizon. Like, oh, it's coming.
But even just the same too, do you think? Are you looking forward to having renewed alone time with the missus for a while? I know that's way down the road.
Yeah. You know, kind of, but like we're in a good place. Like our kids, we all like doing the same thing. Like we like doing outdoorsy stuff, hiking. Like I love like going to visit breweries and all that type of stuff. They can't drink beer, but they love going. Like they like the atmosphere,
but they love beer.
And like all of them make like homemade sodas and cool stuff like that. And it's like a time where we like go there. If there's food trucks, we'll grab some food. Like we're hanging out as a family, like doing something fun, and then we go walking around or go get ice cream or something. Like they still like the family time,
right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't end. I'm a realist though. I know it's gonna. Where friend time is going to become more important than family time.
Sure.
But
I feel like you're going to have well-adjusted kids because of the way you guys have raised them, to where the dynamic's going to shift, where it's going to be 80-20.
Yeah.
But they're still, I think, going to prioritize family.
As long as it's not 100-0.
Right.
Like as long as there's a mixture there. Like I love my kids. I love hanging out with them. They're hilarious. Sometimes they're frustrating.
Sure.
But like I always want that connection to be there, and my wife's even better with that connection than I am. Like she's like their person,
Yeah.
But I'm their second person, which is nice. So,
hey, number 2 is pretty good.
That's right. I'll take number 2. So it's and I think it's as a guy, I sometimes struggle with all the emotions that come along with having pre-teenage daughters.
Do you?
Well,
Because you're, like I said earlier, you don't have any toxic masculinity in you, but you're also still like a quote unquote man.
I guess I just don't understand. Like sometimes some of the things they get upset about, like to
Yeah.
me, it's like,
Oh,
why are you
right.
upset about that?
Yeah.
But then
You even used a word that I feel like puts you miles ahead of most people. Mindful.
Yeah.
That's an important word to use on purpose.
And it's always a word I try to be mindful of being mindful. Because it's one of those things where it's so easy to get caught up in whatever.
Sure.
And if you don't always have something at top of mind, or at least somewhere in that mix, it just goes away.
Right.
So like I'm always trying to check my thoughts, feelings, reactions to theirs, and be like, hey, I might not understand it, but they're feeling it.
And that's the most critical piece, is usually when we're responding or reacting, it's based on our experience.
Yeah.
But we need to be mindful of what they're going through.
Yep.
Because that's the whole point, is where they're at.
Yeah. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to always be thinking of, because sometimes, like you said, it's your knee-jerk reaction to something. Like, hey, this is how I react. And then you got to step back and like, man, I shouldn't react like that, or that was really shitty.
Yeah, and you don't want to be like, when they're having a really upset, and you're like, that's not even important. Why do you even care about that?
Yeah. Well, but to them it is.
Exactly. Like, now you just ruined their entire experience.
Well, yeah, because their world is so much different than our world.
Yeah.
Like, we live in the same house, but what they think is a big problem, or their worldly experience, is nothing compared to ours. So as an adult, it's easy to look at and say, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But to them, that's their everything.
Right.
So that's what I'm always trying to, and Jess is way better at that than me. Sometimes I have to check myself, like, to try and put myself in the mind of a 9-year-old girl.
Right.
Which is tough, but I'm trying. But I have no, like, when I don't do that, I always try and be very aware that I didn't do it, and then go talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my reaction there was not cool.
Right.
Like, I apologize. I'm not trying to, like, minimize your thoughts or feelings.
Yeah.
So, like, to let them know that I'm not against what they're feeling.
Right.
I just don't understand it.
And I think that that's important, because I hope, I've never thought that you could be explosive, and I'm hoping that's true.
For the most part, yes. It takes a lot to
I say it would take something really, really crazy, or sometimes you can be explosive because they might actually put themselves into something dangerous and not realize it, and you accidentally just explode. As opposed to them being bad. It's not always just about being bad. It's about being like, don't be in the street. What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have to bring out the loud voice to show the danger, or for an immediate reaction.
Right, and that's why it's important to be able to then, because at least the way I was raised back in my day, which I hate saying, but it was, you would get the explosive and then nothing.
Yeah.
So to get the initial explosive and be like, hey man, like, this is why and this is what's going on.
Yep.
And I need you to understand that. Like, I didn't mean to yell at you by any means. Like, you know me, I don't want to yell at you.
Yeah.
But you were in trouble. This was going to be a bad situation.
Yep. Well, and I think that's the key to parenting, is not just yelling or setting whatever boundary, but explaining it.
Exactly.
Like, they're not going to learn if you don't tell them why.
Right.
Like, they don't know everything we know. They don't see everything we see. Like, if they run out in the street to chase a ball, they're just focused on the ball. They're not thinking of the car barreling down the street or whatever else is going to happen that could be a danger to them. So you, like, have to, like you said, hey, sorry for this, but these are all the things that I'm worried about.
Right.
And these are the things you need to be worried about or be aware of the next time.
Right.
So it's a learning experience. Parenting is, I feel like we as parents have to learn just as much, if not more, than the kids.
Yeah, well, because you got to be a step above them to be able to explain to them, but then also explain it in a way that doesn't give them some sort of complex.
Yeah.
Because that can easily be, you can easily, with that scenario, for instance, give them some sort of complex about being terrified of playing outside.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that.
Yep.
But you also want to, like, again, you want to be like, hey, you have to be aware, but not afraid.
Yep.
And that's a tough line.
And that line exists for everything.
Right.
Like, from
they're learning how to work on cars.
Yeah.
And a misstep, like this 8,000-pound car is 10 feet off the ground, or 5 feet off the ground. That's terrifying and dangerous, but it's how you work on it.
Well, and there's a safe way to do it and a not safe way.
Right, exactly.
And you need to evaluate every situation and say, this is the way that's going to end in good things. And
Yeah.
if I do it this way, it's end in bad things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a challenge. I would not ever go back on being a parent though. Like,
Yeah.
it has its times where it's frustrating. You want to pull your hair out, but the good times that come with it are totally worth it.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense. That's probably a good place to stop
yeah, it's been a blast, man.
on being awesome parents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You are. I'm not. I don't belong talking to kids or being around them.
I would disagree with that. I think you do, and I think you probably just don't realize your impact or the ability that you have to impact them. Because, and I know this specifically from listening to your podcast, the effects that you can have on people without even you realizing it.
Is that true?
It is true.
That's
so,
weird.
and I notice that every time you talk about being in the school and your ability to help those kids who think that all adults are against them.
Yeah.
Like, that's huge. Like,
That's true.
99% of the kids in school, that's all they need.
Yeah.
Is they need to know that someone's on their side and there for them if they need it.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I do feel that I hope is true. That I there's no way to know for sure, but you hope is reality.
You won't know it now,
Yeah.
and you might not know it next week.
Yeah.
And I can only say this because as a teacher, I've had kids come back to me that I had 15 years ago. Some kids
Yeah.
I don't even remember their name.
Right.
Like, hey, I remember that one time you did this for me.
Yeah.
Or that you helped me with this, or that you taught me this, or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, that's so rewarding. It's like, you thought at the time, you're like, this kid's not paying attention or
Right.
not getting anything out of this, but it does. It sometimes it has to marinate a little bit.
That's one of the things I actually have told to because I work with some of my favorite people, and I'm like, the things that we're trying to do, like you can't take it personally when they're mad at you or when they need to hate you or need to fight you. Like they need somebody to fill that role at that time.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Like there's no way around that. The seeds that we're planting, we're not gonna harvest. They're going to harvest these things away from us a long time from now, but they're going to be able to point to, when I was with Tim, that's when I realized the switches aren't going to flip for years now. That's what I'm hopeful for.
Well, you're right, though. Like, teaching is not an instant gratification sport.
Right.
Like,
and you're not going to get the gratification out of it.
no. Yeah, you most likely will not.
Yeah.
But society will, and
Right.
their family will, and their friends will. Like,
Yeah.
all the other people who will may not know it or say it, but they're going to thank you at some point.
Yeah.
You know? So I
appreciate that,
yeah,
man. Thank
no,
you.
I'm proud of you.
Also, thanks. That's I don't know how to react to that, but it means a lot to me. I appreciate you finding time, man. Let me come by, hang out in the garage, pretend I know anything about cars.
Man. Anytime, man. I'm here all the time.